Hey, this isn't funny at all. Xiao took a step forward, reaching out a hand to grab him. But then, the cracks on his body widened, and suddenly blood oozed out of them. An excruciating pain washed over him, and he did not know whether it came from his body or his heart. He froze in place and could no longer move forward even just a bit while Chun Dashing's body fell back out of the chariot toward the ground. Puke! In the distance, Xingyang Kuan coughed out a mouthful of blood. His spirits slumped in an instant, and he seemed to have grown decades older, with blood covering him all over. He lifted his head and stared venomously at Xiao, who stood absent-minded on the chariot, and bellowed, "Why are you still alive? You should be dead. Fall down. Fall down now." The last few words he screamed at the top of his lungs in a voice thick with rage. Dragging his wounded body, he flew slowly forward, mustering his primordial chi one bit at a time as he advanced. It was all because of this boy that he, a noble martial grandmaster, had fallen into such a miserable state. He swore that he must flay the other, break his bones, and burn him into ashes. He will never fall. Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind Xiao. It trembled slightly in the air as the man who uttered it was suppressing his anger. Meanwhile, a hand rested gently on the latter's shoulder and slowly helped him down. At that moment, Xiao's head was already completely blank, and although his eyes were wide open, they were lifeless. "Who are you?" Xingyang Kuan was both startled and angered. He did not notice how the man had suddenly appeared, and this newcomer's faintly suppressed aura seemed to be not weaker than his. Rumble. No longer able to contain the anger in his heart, the man released his aura, which spread out like ripples on the water across the air, pressing hard on everyone and making them suffocate. Martial Grandmaster. He has advanced into the realm of martial grandmasters. How can he be so fast? The first person to freak out was Chen Duoduo. He clearly remembered that the man's strength was weaker than his just a few days ago, but now he was already a martial grandmaster. The newcomer was none other than Xiao Qingwang, who had been cultivating in the Divine Realm tablet. After taking 2 9 orifices pills in a row, he finally broke through the bottleneck and became a 1-star martial grandmaster. However, just as he was overjoyed and rushed out of the tablet to look for Xiao, he saw Xingyang Kuan detonate the mystic artifact and Chun Dashing save Xiao at the cost of his own life. Martial Grandmaster. You are a martial grandmaster. How can there be a martial grandmaster in Yanwu? Xingyang Kuan was shocked, and he was completely at a loss of what to do now. He had detonated his intrinsic mystic artifact, and although he was severely injured, he was confident that he could still escape from the fleet of over 30 hover chariots and a 9 stars martial king. But he did not expect that his opponent also had a martial grandmaster. How was that possible? If they had a martial grandmaster, why did he not show up earlier? Had he known they had a martial grandmaster, he would not detonate his mystic artifact, and he would choose to leave as soon as possible. As a martial grandmaster, no one could stop him if he were determined to leave. Xingyang Kuan's face turned as pale as a sheet in an instant. Without saying anything, he turned and fled toward the distance with all his strength. He could sense that the man's martial essence of the 6 Directions realm was not very stable, and that told him that the man should have just broken through. But, since he was seriously injured, there was no way he could be the latter's match. Therefore, he chose to flee immediately. "You will stay here forever," Xiao Qingwang roared with a towering rage as he shot forward in a beam of light. 2 beams of light fought fiercely in the sky, one severely injured and not having the will to fight, while the other burned with rage. Very soon, Xingyang Kuan was on the losing side, struggling to defend against the attacks from his opponent. He had 2 intrinsic mystic artifacts, but one was broken and the other detonated, which wounded him during the explosion and caused his fighting strength to plummet to the peak level of a 9 stars martial king realm. The ending was as expected. In a final act of desperation and anger, Xingyang Kuan used an internecine move. He self-detonated his dantian and produced a massive explosion. Xiao Qingwang was wounded by the blast, but he managed to kill his opponent. It was his first battle after becoming a martial grandmaster, and he had killed another martial grandmaster. Although their fighting strength was not equal from the beginning, it allowed him to have a deeper understanding of the Six Directions realm, and he was able to quickly stabilize his cultivation base. He flew back at top speed and picked up Xianxia, who was dying on the chariot, then sped in the direction of the Pill Pagoda. A moment later, his voice came from the distance. Hong Bing, maintain the order and deal with the aftermath. When Hong Bing saw Xiao Qingwang and Yunxiao's figure disappear into the city lord mansion, he finally woke up from the shock. The battle just now was definitely the most legendary and dangerous one he had seen in his entire life. And not only he, but all the people on the scene were greatly shocked. Their faces were pale and they could hardly come back to their senses even now. But he quickly realized his responsibility and shouted, "Everyone, listen to my command. I want all of you to land in the square now, and after that you are required to stay at where you are. We will begin the rescue once the situation is clear." The center of Yanwu was a huge, bottomless pit, and no one knew how many people had died inside. At Hong Bing's command, all the chariots began to land orderly. If these men had joined Yanwu solely for cultivation resources, after the battle, a faint sense of pride and belonging began to develop in their hearts. Hong Bing immediately began to organize people to maintain order and identify the missing persons. Fortunately, he was the commander of the city guards, so he was very familiar with the city and could handle everything easily. Meanwhile, Meng Wu and Chen Dashing were brought to the Pill Pagoda as well by the members of Dubhe. Zhang Qingfan and all the alchemists almost went berserk when they saw Yunxiao with all his wounds. His condition was so serious that it was almost equivalent to that of Ji Meng not so long ago. It was then that the crowd in the Pill Pagoda realized that a fierce battle had just taken place outside, and each of them was fuming. It was especially the case for Li Chunyang, who was holding Chen Dashing's body in agony. They had been brothers for life, but in order to honor his promise to take good care of Yunxiao, Chen Dashing sacrificed himself. Blood trickled down from Li Chunyang's tightly clenched fists, and his eyes were all red. Meng Wu's vitality was almost gone, and she was barely breathing, so they placed her and Yunxiao together in the Thousandwood Rejuvenation Array. Although Zhang Qingfan and Su Han had seen Yunxiao control the array, they had learned not much about it. So, after working hard for some time, they only managed to gather a meager amount of life force, which they injected into the two wounded people. But such a tiny amount of life force was like a drop in a bucket. Yunxiao's injury was not only extremely serious, but also very strange. His skin seemed to have turned into stone and would break apart with the slightest touch. In the beginning, Xiao Qingwang did not realize that and had broken a patch of skin near his shoulder blade, causing his blood to gush out of the wound. That frightened him, and after that, he dared not to touch the other too hard again. Just as the crowd was at a loss of what to do, Ji Meng suddenly said, "To save me, young Master Yun had refined a golden six-sun pill. Do you reckon he still has some?" That reminded Zhang Qingfan, and he hurriedly and carefully removed Yunxiao's storage ring before sending his divine sense into it. But then he suddenly frowned, and his face grew serious. Soon, beads of sweat rolled off his forehead, and in the end, he shook his head and said with a wry smile, "Su Han, I need your help. I cannot open the restrictive spell Master Yunxiao has placed in the ring." Su Han naturally knew the restrictive spell placed by Yunxiao in the ring was extraordinary, so he immediately sat cross-legged down and began to crack it together with Zhang Qingfan. A silence fell as the people around them all watched quietly, while Li Chunyang held Chen Dashing's body with a blank face, his eyes red but dull and lifeless. Suddenly Meng Bai stood up and walked toward the inside of the cavern. While frowning, Luo Yunshang asked, "Meng Bai, what are you doing?" Meng Bai's skinny body stopped and began to twitch violently. Then he turned, with tears trickling down his face. I am going to meditate. I don't want to see my sister and master so badly wounded again and yet have nothing I can do." Luo Yunshang felt a sting in her nose. Meng Bai gave her a tearful smile and said, "Don't worry, my sister and master will be fine." He took out a large demon beast egg from his ring and murmured, "Master told me that as long as I ate this egg, my strength will soar. I will go and eat it now. When my sister and master wake up and see my great progress, they will definitely be very happy." Without looking back, he walked toward the inside of the cavern. Everyone was sad and angry, but no one made a sound, and their eyes burned with rage. Luo Yunshang closed her eyes slightly and prayed, "Lord Gu Feiyang, your disciple is seriously wounded, and he needs you now. Where are you, Lord Gu Feiyang?" Suddenly, Zhang Qingfan let out a long sigh and exchanged a helpless look with Su Han. Even though they had joined hands, they were unable to crack the restrictive spell. Xiao Qingwang could no longer hold back his anger and bellow, "Both of you are fourth-tier alchemists, and yet you can't even open a storage ring. Useless. You are both useless." His angry voice echoed in the cavern. Anyone who dared to scold two fourth-tier alchemists like that would have to face serious consequences, even if he were a martial grandmaster. However, both Zhang Qingfan and Su Han just bowed their heads with a look of shame on their faces. Meanwhile, Xiao Qingwang lifted a hand and made a grabbing gesture, and the ring immediately fell into his palm. Luo Yunshang was shocked. "Qingwang, are you trying to—" "Yes. I'm going to forcibly break open the ring space." A determined look came over Xiao Qingwang's face. That startled Luo Yunshang. "But forcibly breaking open the ring space will most likely destroy its contents, and then there will be nothing left." Xiao Qingwang's pupils constricted. He glanced at Yunxiao and Meng Wu, who were laying in the center of the array, and said firmly, "We don't have the time to consider so much now, and I think we can try as long as there is 10% success rate. When the ring space is broken, I'll use all my strength to prevent it from collapsing. Yunshang, Jimeng, Yan, Li Changfeng, the four of you must use the fastest speed to bring out as many things from it as possible." "Understood," the four people answered in unison. Then, with a nervous and serious look, they surrounded the ring and concentrated their divine sense to the strongest level as they stared unblinkingly at it. Supposedly, Li Chunyang was a more suitable candidate for the task, for his cultivation base was stronger than them. But judging from the blank look on his face, his mind should be equally blank as well. "Good." Xiao Qingwang nodded in approval and said, "Pay close attention now." He threw out a palm with the fingers bent like a claw. Suddenly, a martial essence of the six directions realm gathered from all directions into his palm, and then he pressed it down hard onto the ring. Under the mighty power, the ring began to twist. With a faint crackling sound, Yunxiao's ring blew into pieces. An independent space emerged, but no sooner had it appeared than it began to collapse. "Freeze!" Xiao Qingwang roared as he mustered all his primordial qi in his palm and slapped it at the space. That halted the collapse for a brief moment, and then the space crumbled and vanished in an instant. Meanwhile, he felt that his power was repelled by an irresistible force of rules, which shook his mind and caused him to cough out a mouthful of blood. He could not believe that even with all the power of a martial grandmaster, he could only last a brief moment. And during that brief moment, Luo Yunshang, Jimeng, Yan, and Li Changfeng moved at the same time and tried their best to remove as many things as possible from the space at the fastest speed. Even so, they only managed to take out less than 1/3 of the things. Their faces were extremely unsightly, and they were very anxious, fearing that the golden six-sun pill was not among the things they had taken out. Xiao Qingwang sighed. "The planning lies with man, the outcome with heaven. Master Zhang, take a look at the things and see if you can find any medicinal pills that can save their lives." Zhang Qingfan began to go through the items nervously while Luo Yunshang and the others also tried to pick up smaller objects like bottles and boxes. Very soon, Zhang Qingfan found a pale yellow medicinal pill from among the various bottles and looked surprised. He put it under his nose and smelled it. Then, to be 100% sure, he let Su Han examine it as well. Finally, he said firmly, "This is a golden six-sun pill. Yes, we made it." Everyone was overjoyed. Xiao Qingwang quickly took the pill and walked into the array, then put it into Yunxiao's mouth and helped him dissolve it with primordial qi. The golden six-sun pill was a fourth-tier healing medicine, but even Zhang Qingfan and Su Han could not refine it. After all, not only did they not have the recipe, but it required several extremely bizarre refining techniques which they did not know how to use at all. They waited with expectant faces, but there was no reaction from Yunxiao. Only his skin slightly returned to normal from that stone-like state. His face was still extremely pale and he was still in a coma. Zhang Qingfan was confused. He thought everything would be fine after they found the golden six-sun pill, and yet nothing had changed even after all the hard work. Su Han, on the other hand, felt a chill on his back. Ji Meng had almost died with one of his legs stepped into the jaws of death, but just one golden six-sun pill was enough to save his life. It was to guarantee that his cultivation base would not drop that Yunxiao had constructed the thousand-wood rejuvenation array. He did not expect that Yunxiao would only become slightly better after taking the same medicinal pill. Xiao Qingwang was furious and he roared, "He is only a third-tier alchemist, and both of you are fourth-tier alchemists, but why is there such a huge gap between you?" Zhang Qingfan's face turned slightly pale. He had never been scolded like that after he had become a third-tier alchemist. However, not only was he not angry, but he was also ashamed. "I'm indeed a loser. Master Yunxiao is in such a serious condition, and yet there is nothing I can do." Suddenly, Su Han said, "Old Zhang, I just thought of a pill recipe. Do you still remember the recipe you showed me, which is hidden in the depths of the Imperial Palace?" Zhang Qingfan paused a moment. Then his eyes lit up and he jumped, slapping his forehead as he said, "I'm such a fool. How could I even forget that?" He hurriedly explained to the crowd, "I found a pill recipe by accident in the treasure of the Imperial Palace before, which is a fourth-tier medicinal pill that can revive the dead. As I thought I can never become a fourth-tier alchemist in my life, I didn't pay too much attention to it. The recipe is still imprinted in my head though. I will refine it with Su Han now. We will save Master Yunxiao." When he had finished, he ran out of the cavern with Su Han. At least they saw a sliver of hope, which cheered both men up immediately. Meanwhile, Hong Bing had begun the work of getting Yanwu back on track. First of all, he locked down the whole city and permitted no one from entering or leaving, so as to prevent the news from leaking out quickly and attracting stronger enemies. Secondly, he sent people to transport a large amount of earth and rock from outside the city to fill the huge pit in the center of the city. Qian Duoduo stood on top of a building and watched as all that took place. He swept the whole city with his divine sense, and he did not find Yunxiao and the others. That made him realize that they must have entered an independent space. The battle just now had left a deep mark in his head. He could not believe that a young martial master could have such a fierce fighting strength. Especially the last attack, the illusory flaming bird. He reckoned that if he were in Xingyang Kuan's position, he would have long been burned into ashes. Is that a phoenix? It should be the illusory form of a phoenix, a legendary true spirit. Qian Duoduo murmured to himself, his eyes filled with deep shock. All ancient true spirits were existences of the 10 worlds realm, but they had long been gone in the long river of history, and only existed in legends now. He did not think he could see the trace of one today. "What kind of man is this city lord of yours?" Qian Duoduo asked with a frown on his face as he sensed the aura of another man beside him. That gave Hong Bing a pause, but then he smiled and said while looking at the city down below being restored and resumed orderly, "This city lord of yours? He is your city lord as well. To be honest, I'm not sure. He has only been in Yanwu for half a month. But..." His eyes suddenly lit up and his face grew serious. "I believe that under his leadership, Yanwu will certainly become a great place." "A great place." Qian Duoduo smiled non-committally. "In your opinion, what makes a city great?" Hong Bing heard the disdain in his tone. A hint of irritation rose in his heart, and he said coldly, "I don't know, but as long as he is the city lord, I believe Yanwu will become a first-class power sooner or later in not only Firecrow Empire, but the heavenly martial realm as well." "A first-class power in the heavenly martial realm? Ha! You are a frog living at the bottom of a well. Do you know how vast the heavenly martial realm is?" Qian Duoduo showed a sarcastic look and said disdainfully, Firecrow Empire is just an insignificant existence in the heavenly martial realm. Even if it is wiped out by someone tomorrow, it will not be a piece of important news, and not many people will want to know about it. That made Hong Bing extremely uncomfortable. Although he was facing a 9-stars martial king, he still held his head up fearlessly and said in a cold voice, "Yes, I'm indeed a frog living at the bottom of a well, and you are a mighty 9-stars martial king. But you can look with your own eyes at the city lord himself. Look at how he leads us and Yenwu to the pinnacle of this continent. One step at a time." At that moment, Hong Bing did not know why he was so confident, and a faith that had never existed before sprouted in his heart. He glanced coldly at Chen Duoduo and left to continue his work. He did not want to spend his time with someone like this. The sarcastic look on Chen Duoduo's face slowly faded away. There was a look of pain in his eyes as they seemed to look through layers of space into the unreachable north, while a voice rang in his mind. "When I reach the pinnacle of this continent, I, Chen Duoduo, will come back." He felt a pang of sadness, and he closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes a moment later, they were as clear and calm as before. Looking at the city down below, he murmured to himself, "Did he say the pinnacle of the continent? Since everyone trusts you so much, then I will believe you just once." He lifted his hand and looked at the 9 orifices pill in his palm. Then, with just a blink, he vanished from the rooftop. In Mount Inch within the Divine Realm tablet, Zhang Qingfan roared excitedly, "We made it! This is the snow pill, a 4th-tier healing medicine. We've finally made it." Sensing the rich primordial qi emanating from the medicinal pill, he turned and bolted toward the cavern. This snow pill is an ancient healing medicine. Although it is only a 4th-tier medicinal pill, it is much stronger than all those common 4th-tier medicinal pills. Can you sense its rich primordial qi? It can certainly save Master Yunxiao, Zhang Qingfan explained in excitement. After he fed the pill to Yunxiao, the crowd waited quietly with expectant faces. Time went by little by little. Li Changfeng could not bear it anymore. He walked out of the cavern and looked at the sky, which was always bright and clear in the Divine Realm table. He frowned and said, "At least 6 hours have passed, right? Why hasn't he reacted yet?" Zhang Qingfan's forehead was covered with sweat, and his face was blank. The medicinal pill was refined by him and Su Han, and they both knew how strong its strength was, which was enough to revive a dead. But why had it only made Yunxiao's face slightly red? Su Han could not help saying, "This is very strange. Maybe Master Yunxiao's condition is too serious. Why don't we go and refine a few more? Maybe that will help." Maybe. By now, even he had completely lost confidence. "Yes, we will refine a few more. I'm sure we can save Master Yunxiao by feeding him enough snow pills." Zhang Qingfan was fuming. The fact that he, as a 4th-tier alchemist, could do nothing when Yunxiao, who was like a teacher to him, was dying had completely angered him. Hold on. Just when the two of them walked out of the cavern and planned to continue to refine more pills, Xiao Qingwang cried out suddenly, "Look! What is going on with the array?" They hurried back to the cavern and saw the array had activated by itself, and was slowly rotating in a way that was more perfect than when they controlled it previously. Soon it was running at its full capacity. What's going on? Both men were startled and completely confused at first, but the look on their faces turned to surprise when they saw the array begin to crazily absorb the surrounding primordial qi, convert it into the purest life force, and forcibly pour into Yunxiao and Meng Wu's bodies. In the beginning, it was like a trickling stream, but then it turned into a rushing river, and before long, both Yunxiao and Meng Wu were completely drowned by the almost corporeal life force. The crowd guarded around the array were struck dumb. They had never seen so much life force, and when they inhaled it, they immediately felt their minds become clearer and their spirits freshened. After it was activated, the array ran continuously for 1 day and 1 night. It was only when the rushing life force began to gradually fade away that the crowd could see the situation inside the array. Yunxiao sat there with a calm face while Meng Wu was still in a coma. Although Zhang Qingfan's snow pill did not fully recover Yunxiao, it restored a wisp of his divine sense. and as Divine Realm Tablet was his intrinsic mystic artifact, although he had not yet fully refined it, he could still control an array in it effortlessly. So, after his wisp of divine sense restored, he used it to activate and control the array and began to heal his injuries. Young Master Yun! Yunxiao! Master Yunxiao! The crowd cried out almost simultaneously, and everyone had an overjoyed look on their faces. After the moment of joy, however, Luo Yunxiang frowned and asked worriedly, "Why is Meng Wu?" Yunxiao glanced at them and said calmly, "Her 3 spiritual souls were shattered by Xingyang Kuan. Unless a soul-nourishing wood is found, she won't wake up, no matter how strong her vitality is." "I see. At least there is a way to save her." Luo Yunxiang was relieved to hear that, but what really worried her was Yunxiao's overly calm look, which was a kind of indifference toward everything. How could a boy who was only 15 years old have such a calmness about him, as if he had experienced many vicissitudes of life and indifference toward everything? "Are you all right, young Master Yun?" Xiao Qingwang could feel the cold as well, and he asked worriedly. "I'm fine." Yun Xiao glanced at the crowd. Suddenly, his pupils constricted slightly, and his eyes flashed with a glimmer of pain. He tried his best to ask in a calm voice, "Where's my grandpa and Uncle Chun?" Everyone was shocked, and for a moment no one knew how to answer. Li Chongfeng swallowed hard and said, "Your grandpa is out there with he." Yun Xiao seemed to lose his spirit in an instant. With the loneliness and sadness that could no longer be concealed in his eyes, he said softly, "I see. I'll go and see them." After saying that, he vanished from the cavern. The crowd wanted to follow, but Luo Yunxiang stopped them. She sighed and said, "Let him go. Chen Dashing died to save him. You should know how miserable he is at this moment." The crowd fell silent. Xiao Qingwang's eyes gleamed as he suddenly turned and walked toward the depths of the cavern and said coldly, "Go and meditate now, all of you. Soon there will be tougher battles. I don't want to see any of you leave like him in the next battle." Although they felt pain in their hearts too, they all had experienced the slaughter on the battlefield, and had lost many of their brothers and sisters in the past. So they could still accept it. Upon hearing that, they stood up and started toward the depths of the cavern with a trace of hatred on their faces. After coming out of the cavern, Yun Xiao saw Li Chunyang drinking wine alone in front of a new grave on a hilltop. "You've woken up?" he asked in surprise when he saw Yun Xiao walk over, and then he said with a wry smile, "Do you know what is the most painful thing in life?" Yun Xiao rested his eyes on the grave and shook his head. "Ha ha!" Li Chunyang burst into laughter with tears running down his face. "The most painful thing in life is that you can't get drunk. I have never been drunk since I became a martial king." A lonely look came over Yun Xiao's calm face. He closed his eyes slightly and said, "I will brew a pot of wine that can make you drunk the next time." There was no sunrise or sunset in the Divine Realm Tablet, but a cold wind was felt blowing constantly. Under Hong Bing's orderly command, the aftermath within Yanwu was quickly settled. The large pit in the center of the city was filled and the list of missing persons compiled. Yun Xiao glanced at the list. Most of the casualties were common people, but because the city was too densely populated, they were also many members of Dubhe and Merak. He gave the list to Wu Zisher and said, "I want all the sacrificed common people to be properly settled. The compensation must be paid to their families in a timely manner, and for those who don't have immediate family members, their compensation must be paid to their relatives. As for the members of Dubhe and Merak, they will receive 100 times more compensation, and I want you to personally send the money to their families." As for Chunzhen, Yun Xiao had sent him and Han Bai into the cavern and asked them to meditate there. He had once promised Chen Dashing that he would help Chunzhen become a martial lord in 1 year. Now that Chen Dashing was dead, he had to fulfill the promise no matter what. Wu Zisher bowed and hurried away. Meanwhile, Yun Xiao turned to Jia Rong and asked, "How much have you borrowed?" Jia Rong had returned just after the battle. He quickly stepped out of the rank and said, "Myriad Treasures Store lent us 50,000 superior-grade primordial stones. In Zhaoyang said he is going to cultivate in seclusion, and most probably won't show up for some time. Tianyuan Trading Company has lent us 50,000 superior-grade primordial stones as well. Misting Linger didn't say anything except that they don't have too many primordial stones available on hand right now, and can only lend us so much. Yun Xiao snorted coldly. That old codger in Zhaoyang is afraid I will pluck his hair again. So he hid himself. Humph. He wants to curry favor with me, and yet he's unwilling to invest. There's no such good thing in the world. Send someone to tell him that if he doesn't lend 200,000 superior-grade primordial stones to me, I will take it as if I never knew him. By that time, I will not entertain him even if he brings me 2 million or 20 million primordial stones. He was in a bad mood now. If it were at a normal time, he would just laugh it off because the result was actually within his expectations. But he was not so accommodating now. He thought he had done well with Yanwu's defense and offense, but just a martial grandmaster was enough to wreak havoc in the city, and Chen Dashing was even killed because of him. Ah? This? Jia Rong was struck dumb, and beads of cold sweat began to drop down his forehead. Who would borrow money like that? He could already imagine the furious look on In Zhaoyang's face when he would tell the latter that. The man was a martial grandmaster, and this demand was like a slap in his face. But then, he suddenly recalled that a mighty martial grandmaster had just fallen over Yanwu, which he found extremely difficult to accept. Right then, a servant came into the hall with a jade slip in his hand and said, "Just now someone gave me this and said it must be opened by the city lord." The man vanished right in front of me after giving it to me. The servant was just a common mortal, and the so-called vanished man was most probably a warrior using a movement technique. Yun Xiao took the jade slip and sent his divine sense into it. With that, the information contained in it immediately emerged in his mind. It was news from Tianyuan Trading Company. Surprisingly, they knew every detail of what had happened recently in Yanwu, and Ding Linger even included detailed information about the Xingyang family and the Supreme Palace, as if she knew what Yun Xiao was thinking. Humph. It looks like this little girl doesn't trust me. She is watching me so closely. But I can't blame her, since she has invested so much in me. He thought to himself. His original plan was to enter a secluded meditation, break through to the realm of great martial masters, and then bring his men to attack the Xingyang family. But, after reading the news from Tianyuan Trading Company, he changed his plans slightly. He took out the invitation from Supreme Palace and gave it another look as he made up his mind. He turned to Hong Bing and said, "I'm going out. When Nung Feichen gets here, give these medicinal pills to him and bring him to the Pill Pagoda. I've already prepared 3 venues inside and created extremely harsh environments with arrays, which are more than enough to let the members of Dubhe, Migres, and Merak cultivate at the same time. Teacher Luo Yunshang will be the leader of Dubhe for the time being. Tell her that when she comes out of her seclusion." After saying that, Yun Xiao left Yanwu alone, heading in the direction of the Supreme Palace. The area under Firecrow Empire's jurisdiction was huge, but the land occupied by mortals was very small and mainly concentrated in major cities. Most of the land was occupied by mountain ranges that stretched endlessly. The Supreme Palace was situated in one such mountain range with excellent primordial qi. The sect did not have a long history, but it had risen rapidly, and it had become a famous power in Firecrow Empire in just a very short time. To prevent Li Yi from recognizing him, Yun Xiao had deliberately changed his appearance a little. No one could recognize him without looking at him carefully now. "Slow down, brother. Are you going to the Supreme Palace to offer your congratulations?" Yun Xiao was walking leisurely in the mountain when a voice came from behind him. Soon, a man in white clothes came next to him with just a few leaps. The man was a 3-stars martial lord. He looked at Yun Xiao in surprise as he smiled and asked, "Which sect are you from, brother? We can travel together." "Travel together my ass. Supreme Palace is just a few steps up ahead. So why do we need to travel together?" Yun Xiao cursed in his head. But he still put on a joyous look and said politely, "I'm Meng Bai from Diana sect. May I know which sect are you from, brother?" The man had a dubious look in his eyes when he heard that. He studied Yun Xiao from top to bottom as he frowned and said, "You are here for the Supreme Palace's celebration banquet?" The way the man looked at him made Xiao somewhat uncomfortable. What did I do wrong? He thought in his head. Puzzled, he asked. Yes. Why? Is there something wrong? The man's smiling face instantly turned cold, and there was a sneer in his eyes as he snorted and said, I'm Xiao Jian from the 100 Swords sect. Take care of yourself. As soon as he had finished speaking, he strode straight on. It was he who had suggested them to travel together, but his attitude now clearly said that he did not take Xiao seriously anymore. Take care of myself? That gave Xiao a pause. He hurried up and stopped Xiao Jian. Why do you ask me to take care of myself, brother Xiao Jian? I'm not familiar with you, so don't call me a brother. Xiao Jian held his head up with a lofty air. When he saw the puzzled look on Xiao's face, he sneered, You really don't know, do you? Well, I don't mind telling you the truth. Are you unpopular in Diana sect and often offend others? Xiao still did not understand. Does it matter? Xiao Jian gave him a cold look and said sarcastically, It matters a lot. Your Diana sect is a famous hermit sect in Firecrow Empire. Apart from Nung Feichen, the rest of you are worthless, and his time is almost up. Who doesn't know that you are the bottom sect? Supreme Palace flattered you by sending you the invitation, but you only send a martial master to attend the banquet? How ignorant and arrogant is that? So, you better take care of yourself later. Only then did Xiao understand the situation. Generally, the strength of the disciple sent by a sect to invite others for an event or to attend an event represented its attitude toward the others. For example, Supreme Palace only sent Fu Junkai, who was a great martial master, to Diana sect, but a martial lord to 100 Swords sect. Although 100 Swords sect only sent a martial lord to attend the celebration, Xiao Jian was actually the sect leader's son, the chosen prospective sect leader. When Xiao Jian saw Xiao, he thought he was a disciple from some powerful sect, which was huge enough to just send a martial master. That was the reason why he hurried up and suggested that they should travel together, so he could know him better. Little did he know that Xiao was just an insignificant disciple of Diana sect, a sect that was far weaker than 100 Swords sect. If the Supreme Palace were provoked, it was very likely that they would kill this poor guy on the spot. Even if they spared him, they would still insult him in front of everyone. Xiao Jian gave the poor guy, who was apparently framed by his own fellow disciples, a sarcastic look as he held his head up and walked away. I didn't expect this, Xiao said to himself with a wry smile. Wouldn't that make me stand out? This is going to be problematic. He could not think of a better way at the moment, and since he was already here, he could not just turn back and leave. So, he had no choice but move on and pray that he would not be recognized by Li Yi so soon. Many people had arrived at Supreme Palace's front gates. Xiao Jian showed his invitation to an old man in charge of receiving guests, who spoke a few polite words with him and asked a disciple to lead him in. Xiao was shocked when he saw the buildings. This Supreme Palace really is related to that Beiming family. Even its front gate is exactly the same as that of the Beiming Dark Palace, just that this one is smaller and not as grand, he thought. At that moment, a man caught Xiao's attention. When showing his invitation, the man said, I'm Xingyang Ming from the Xingyang family of Firecrow Empire. Xingyang family. Xiao's pupils constricted. This Xingyang Ming was a 2-stars martial lord, and judging from the faint primordial qi emanating from him, he was about to break through the next level. Welcome, my lord. This way, please. Luo Mao. Quickly bring Lord Xingyang Ming to the seat of honor, the old man shouted. Although the Xingyang family was not much stronger than the Supreme Palace, it was one of the oldest and most powerful aristocratic families of the Firecrow Empire. Little brother, you are? After Xingyang Ming went in, the old man saw Xiao. Shocked, so he asked quickly and carefully. A sect that only sent a martial master must be a very powerful sect, and there were less than 5 of them in Firecrow Empire. Could this young man be a disciple from one of them? He dared not to neglect such an important guest. Xiao smiled wryly when he saw the old man's careful look. I'm from Diana sect, he said while handing over the invitation. Oh, you are from Dechua. Wait, Diana sect? The old man showed a surprised look at first, But then his eyes suddenly widened and his voice grew incredulous. Like Xiao Jian, he studied Yun Xiao from top to bottom, then glanced at the invitation. "You are really from Diana sect?" That made the warriors coming to attend the celebration behind him stop in place and look over. What is Diana sect trying to do? How insolent! Heh! Supreme Palace throws this celebration banquet just to show off and display its strength. But in my opinion, Diana sect is the one who is displaying its strength now. Yeah, how impressive. I can't believe they just send a martial master here. This is no different from a slap in the face. Haha, you're right. And what a loud slap. I wonder how the Supreme Palace will react. Do you think they will kill him and make him an example? I don't think so. After all, today is a day of celebration. But I'm sure there will be insults and humiliation. Yun Xiao smiled bitterly in his heart as he listened to the chatter around him. Meanwhile, the old man's face turned livid, and his eyes burned with rage. To him, it was a test of his wits, and he was so nervous that his forehead was already covered with cold sweats. With the people sent by all the well-known sects in Firecrow Empire watching them now, it would be a disgrace to Supreme Palace if he did not handle the situation well. If he were allowed, he would have killed the stupid-looking lad with a slap. But it was a taboo to kill someone on the young palace master's big day. Suddenly, the old man's eyes lit up, as if he had thought of a good idea. Staring coldly at Yun Xiao, he asked, "May I know what gift does my lord from Diana sect bring today?" Gift? Yun Xiao paused. He really forgot about it. If it were a few days ago, he might still have something on him, but now his storage ring was destroyed by Xiao Qingwang, and his new ring only contained the cauldron of 5 elements, which he would never give to anyone. That stunned the old man, and his mouth dropped open as if he were completely struck dumb. Don't tell me you did not bring any gift?" Yun Xiao gave him an embarrassed smile and said, "Ugh. Well, I will bring it next time, I promise." The people around felt their heads reel. It was a pure provocation instead of a congratulation. If he were sent here because he was framed by his fellow disciples, then the fact that he did not bring a gift was no less than a slap in the face. The old man choked back his anger and took some time to calm down. His eyes were wide with fury, but he tried his best to make his voice calm. Fine. Zhu-san, come over here and lead our guest from the Diana sect inside." A disciple hurried over, and when he saw the look on the old man's face, he knew what he should do. "My lord, please come with me," he cried, drawing out his voice. Under the mocking eyes of the crowd, Yun Xiao took a few steps, and then he suddenly asked, somewhat astounded, "Where are we going? Why did they all go through the front gate?" "Front gate?" Zhu-san glared at him and said in a loud mocking voice, "You are a lord, so you have to go this way. We have an entrance for dogs here and it leads directly to the woodshed. When the banquet starts later, I will bring you a bowl of rice. Do eat more, and make sure you are full before you go back. We can't let Diana sect accuse the Supreme Palace for not serving you even a bowl of rice." "Ha ha!" The crowd burst into laughter instantly. Zhu-san's voice was loud, so everyone heard him clearly. They laughed wantonly, and their eyes were filled with derision. Even the old man was laughing, and all his anger vanished in an instant. The more he looked at Zhu-san, the more he found the latter likable. How come I didn't realize this boy had such good skills before? Not bad. I will promote him after this. Surrounded by the wild laughter, Yun Xiao's face was calm. No one knew that he was also laughing in his heart now. He had planned to sneak out during the banquet, and he was worried that someone might find out. But little did he expect that he would be given such an excellent opportunity. He purposely put on a look of distress and sighed over and over again. "Let's go, sighing will not do you any good. I've prepared the woodshed for you. This way please, my lord." With a hint of a smile on his face, Yun Xiao entered through a small door after Zhu-san, and sure enough, he was led to a woodshed. Zhu-san pushed open the shed's door and sneered, "I'll leave you here, my lord, as I have other more important tasks to attend. When the rice is served later, remember to eat a few more bowls." "Ha ha! He laughed triumphantly and left, leaving Yunxiao behind. Yunxiao sneered and walked directly into the woodshed, where he sat cross-legged down and sent out his divine sense. In just the blink of an eye, the whole Supreme Palace was under his monitoring. He carefully avoided some powerful aura. Although his divine sense should be the strongest here, it was always good to be careful. But what he saw immediately put a frown on his face. This Supreme Palace had not only copied Beiming Dark Palace's front gate, but even their interiors were almost identical. Moreover, the extreme cold energy they cultivated was actually the Beiming cold energy of the Beiming family, which was one of the most vicious energies in the world. And Luo Yunxiang's pure yang energy happened to be one of the cultivation techniques that could suppress it. He did not understand why two of the most brutal cultivation techniques in the world would appear in Firecrow Empire at the same time. Since its interior is identical to that of Beiming Dark Palace, their treasury should be at the same place as well. Yunxiao smiled, and he disappeared from the woodshed very quickly, running toward a small gallery beside the main hall. In his previous life, he had attacked and escaped Beiming Dark Palace 3 times. Had he not been helped by someone, he would have died inside almost every time, so he was very familiar with its layout. Although this place was a lot smaller, as it was a copy, he found no difficulty in navigating around. Soon, he came in front of a small yard after passing a few galleries. Inside it was an ancient square tower, which looked splendid with its crystal-clear building material. They lack even the simplest creativity. Why do they want to copy the square tower as well, and then construct it so crudely? In Yunxiao's eyes, such a splendid tower was just a poorly constructed inferior product. He was about to step into the yard when he suddenly sensed something. Hurriedly, he retracted his aura and hid in a corner. A short moment later, a white figure ran sneakily over, glancing about as he moved, as if he were afraid of being found by others. With a few dashes, he leaped into the yard. Yunxiao's eyes gleamed, and he almost burst out laughing. The man was Li Yi. It seemed that they were destined to meet each other. What is he doing here? Is he here to steal something too? Yunxiao thought to himself. He is really bold to steal from his own sect. Well, I'll just let him be my guide then. After stepping into the yard, Li Yi just stood there without moving, as if he had turned into a statue. Yunxiao was a little surprised. It had only been a few days, but Li Yi had already advanced to become a 1-star martial lord. The progress was even faster than his own. He wondered how the other cultivated. It was only after a moment of waiting that Li Yi began to move. Carefully, he lifted a leg and took a step, then another step. He landed each step in a very strange way and walked with extreme caution. Obviously, there were strong restrictive spells in this yard, and one wrong step would kill him. Li Yi focused all his attention on his legs, not daring to be careless. It took him almost an hour to walk a distance of only several meters. When he finally reached the other side of the yard, he breathed a deep sigh of relief. What monster created this restrictive spell? This is simply torturing. He complained while sending a few incantation seals with both hands into the square tower's door, which made the 2 little copper rings on it glow with a faint yellow light. Soon, the door opened with a deep rumble. With a joyous look, Li Yi could not help but murmur to himself, "After bowing my head and wagging my tail like a dog in front of that pervert for so long, I'm finally here." Luckily, he broke through and is throwing a celebration banquet, or I wouldn't have this opportunity. Now, as long as I can find the outworld dark jade and cultivate my extreme cold energy to perfection, I'll have the ability to protect myself even from a martial king. The outworld dark jade. Yunxiao's pupils constricted, and he cried out involuntarily. That thing was the unique treasure of the Beiming family, and also a must-have item to cultivate the Beiming extreme cold energy. How could it be here? Who goes there? The sudden cry frightened Li Yi and turned his face pale instantly. If he were caught stealing, he would definitely be killed. At that moment, he saw a figure dash into the yard, repeating the same steps he had taken just now. Yunxiao moved so fast that before Li Yi could see his face, he had already passed the restrictive spell, ran past him, and bolted into the square tower. "Who are you?" Li Yi rushed in after Yunxiao, shocked and angry, but relieved at the same time. He would be shorter by a head now if the sudden visitor was a person in power of Supreme Palace. But, if the man was not from Supreme Palace, how did he pass the restrictive spell so fast? It was only after watching the young palace master Ma Feibai a dozen times that Li Yi managed to secretly learn the steps, and even Ma Feibai could not move as quickly as the man. As soon as he was inside, Li Yi was struck dumb. He saw the man just standing in the middle of the square tower with his back toward him, as if he were waiting for him on purpose. When he found with his divine sense that the stranger was only a peak-level martial master, he breathed a sigh of relief and said coldly, "Who are you? How dare you intrude a restricted area of Supreme Palace? Do you know you will be killed for this?" Yunxiao turned around with a smile. "Long time no see, 9527. I hope you are well. It's you, Li Yunxiao." Li Yi was stunned at first, and then he flew into a rage in an instant. He found that whenever he saw this guy, he could no longer control his emotions. His body was trembling slightly as a monstrous killing intent exploded out of him. "Ha! It feels so great to meet an old friend in a strange place," Yunxiao said calmly, as if they were a pair of old friends who had not seen each other for a long time. Li Yi took a few deep breaths and tried his best to calm down. He was already a martial lord, and he told himself that he should not be afraid of this guy. In a cold voice, he said, "It depends on what the old friend you meet in a strange place wants from you. If he tries to borrow money from you, it will not be so great anymore." "Ha! 9527. Since when did you become so funny?" Yunxiao roared with laughter. The killing intent was plain on Li Yi's face. "I don't find it funny at all. How did you learn the steps to bypass the restrictive spell?" He was still puzzled. If it were someone from Supreme Palace entered here, he could still accept, but he was completely baffled when the man was Yunxiao. "You are the one who taught me," said Yunxiao with a smile. "I really have to thank you this time. If you hadn't come in first, I would have been blown to pieces by that restrictive spell." Li Yi almost fainted when he heard that. He could not believe he had unintentionally helped Yunxiao, which upset him even more than being cut with a knife. While fuming, he clenched his jaws and said, "Nonsense! I've had to watch a dozen times before I learned the steps. Even if you are truly gifted and had learned it by just looking at it once, there is no way you could use it with such proficiency." Yunxiao looked at him as if he were an idiot and mocked. "By that look of you alone, I can tell you are an uncivilized man, a material born to be a servant. You know nothing about music and dance. I realized immediately after watching you take the first few steps that it is one of the most popular dance steps in ancient times called the soul and sword dance." When he had finished, he began to stamp rhythmically on the ground, moving with the strange steps and dancing with his upper body. "Look, am I doing it right? There's also music to go with it, which is called—" Li Yi did not wait for him to finish before he coughed out a mouthful of blood. Looking at Yunxiao's skillful steps and rhythm, he had no more doubt that he had indeed helped his foe. He was so angry that he felt his head reel, and he bellowed, "Don't be so proud of yourself, Li Yunxiao. This is where you die today. Why are you so angry? It's not good for your health. Besides, if you make too much noise, you might attract others." Yunxiao smiled as he waved at Li Yi and said, "Come here and dance with me. It will help you release some pressure." "You!" Li Yi was so angry that he felt his chest was about to explode. But when he thought about how much effort he had put in to sneak into here, and that all the effort would be in vain if he were discovered, and he would be killed for a certain, he choked back the anger and said, "I've had enough of your nonsense. Just tell me what you want." "Hee. What I want is nothing special. I can see a lot of treasures here, and I want them all," Yunxiao said casually. "No way." Li Yi rejected that brusquely. "Don't go too far, I tell you. There are too many treasures here, and I fear you can't take them all. Besides, I'm the one who came in first." He paused as he ground his teeth and went on. "We will share the things. You take 40%, and I take the rest." Yunxiao laughed. He made a surprised look and said, "Are you sure you're not telling a joke?" Li Yi's chest heaved with fury. He did not know why he wished he could rip that face to pieces whenever he saw Xianxia. When he was in the Li family, he had never looked this good-for-nothing in the eye, and he did not expect that when he did, his eyes were stabbed by a bright light. Fine. I admit defeat this time. We will share everything equally. Xianxia put away his mocking look and sneered. You are just a lowly servant of my family. What makes you think you are worthy of sharing everything equally with me? Li finally could not stand it anymore. A fierce, murderous aura exploded out of his eyes in an instant as he rushed forward. Meanwhile, there was a golden flash in his right hand. It was a sharp sword that appeared out of nowhere, and he thrust it directly toward Xianxia's throat. He threw caution to the wind completely, and he swore in his heart that he would kill this little son of a bitch today, even if it would cost his own life. Although he had broken through and become a martial lord, Li was not so arrogant as to think that he could kill Xianxia with one move. Sure enough, he saw Xianxia move slightly and flick his sword with a finger, knocking the sharp blade to the side. He immediately felt a great force coming over at him, causing his arm to tremble slightly. Holding back the shock in his heart, he swung the sword rapidly and enveloped Xianxia with sword light. Humph! I don't have time to waste on you anymore. Fearing that the noise they made would alert others, Xianxia drew his tiger tooth. A faint tiger roar rang out, and for a moment, the whole hall was filled with the might of a tiger king. Sword of Tiger Tooth, the roar that shakes the forest. Impossible! Li Yi's pupils constricted as terror filled his heart. Xianxia's sword strike destroyed all his sword light as it condensed into a fierce tiger might that leaped at him like a demon tiger king, locking his aura and making it impossible for him to escape. When Li Yi was still a great martial master, he had never been able to defeat Xianxia, but he did not dream that it would still be the same even when he had become a martial lord. It frustrated him so much that he was about to go berserk. Don't underestimate me. Try my ice punch. He roared furiously, throwing out thousands of punches in the blink of an eye. For a moment, the world was filled with his fists, and the temperature inside the tower dropped significantly. Oh! Xianxia was surprised, and he said with a smile, You've made some progress. Sword of Tiger Tooth. The Song of Blue Lotus Sword. Li felt like coughing blood again when he saw Xianxia's casual look. But then he immediately sensed a great danger from the few huge lotus flowers blooming out of Xianxia's hands, which blocked all his ice punches. With a soft smile on his face, Xianxia pointed out his sword. Suddenly, the flowers condensed from sword light bloomed and broke apart into petals, falling down from the air before being rolled up by a gust of wind, which turned into a small tornado and spun toward Li Yi. In the blink of an eye, Li Yi was surrounded by petals, making him terrified. All the petals in the tornado were made of sword light, which meant there were thousands of sword lights slashing at him at the same time. He sucked in a breath and felt a chill run down his back, but his mind calmed down in that instant. If he lost his life, what was the point of killing Xianxia? And what was the point of getting the Outworld Dark Jade? At the most critical moment, Li Yi woke up and realized that nothing was more important than his own life. Ice energy, ice sword technique. Suddenly, rings of cold air emerged and wheeled around him. Then a plume of cold air transformed into a sword light and slashed out, forcing away all the tiger power along the way as it cut a passage through the blue lotus petals that blotted the air. Li Xianxia, I swear I will kill you one day. Hack your corpse 1,000 times. Then burn it and scatter the ashes everywhere. Li Yi screamed as he fled through the passage he had cut out. Xianxia laughed and said, I'll wait for you, and I look forward to our next meeting. Li Yi's body paused for a brief moment. It was plain that he was provoked once again, but he vanished into the distance in the next instant. I doubt he will inform others about me, but I shouldn't stay here for too long. Xianxia glanced around in the square tower, putting everything he saw into his ring. There are indeed many good things, but none of them is as good as the Outworld Dark Jade. Where is it now? While frowning, he sat cross-legged down and spread out his divine sense, searching every corner in the square tower while not neglecting even the tiniest spot. How clever! They almost deceived me. Xianxia sensed a weak energy fluctuation in a corner. He walked over and kicked the ground with one leg, and it broke open immediately, revealing a small pit. Inside was placed an exquisite small white box made of a jade-like material that seemed to be the bone of some animal. He opened the box and saw an object wrapped in a square of gray leather. He touched the wrapping and cried out, "The skin of an ancient dragon! No wonder it can block my divine sense. Luckily, this leather is too small and not powerful enough." He lifted the dragon's skin, and a silvery white stone was revealed. Meanwhile, a strong cold air blew into his face, and he felt like he was frozen instantly and losing his senses while a stream of extreme cold energy was attacking his meridians. He quickly covered the stone with the skin, and the feeling disappeared, just that his hands were still covered in a thin layer of ice. It really is the outworld dark jade. Although it is only the size of a palm, someone should have knocked it off from the one in the beaming dark palace. TSK, is Ma Tianhe a traitor of beaming dark palace? He is just a martial grandmaster, and yet he dared to steal it from them. He really has no idea of death or danger. After putting away everything, Xianxia left the square tower and started toward the banquet hall. It had been a while since Li Yi fled, and the Supreme Palace was still quiet. He probably did not alert anyone for fear that it would drag him in as well. As he heard the joyful singing and laughter coming from the banquet hall in the distance, Xianxia sneered. Then his lips moved slightly, compressing his voice into a line and sending it into the hall. Xingyang Ming, who was drinking in the hall, suddenly frowned. A look of doubt came into his eyes, but it was gone in the next moment, and he abruptly looked outside, his face covered with shock and terror that could not be concealed. Without hesitation, he stood up and turned to Ma Tianhe and Ma Feibai as he said, "Palace Master, Deputy Palace Master, there is something urgent that requires me to leave early. I beg your pardon." Ma Tianhe paused a moment, and an obvious look of displeasure came over his face. He said coldly without losing his grace, "Since Lord Xingyang Ming has something more important, we dare not to keep you any longer. Unlike us, who stay in the mountains like some savage men, a man who stays in the empire is usually bound by more things." Xingyang Ming knew his host was unhappy, but he could not care much about it now as he just spoke apologetically. "I am truly sorry. I promise I will visit and ask you for your pardon next time." Only then did Ma Tianhe look better as he waved and said, "You may leave now." Xingyang Ming felt relieved and took his leave hurriedly. As soon as he stepped out of the hall, he ran toward a certain direction. Just now, a voice was sent into his ear, reading him a very profound cultivation technique. He had only listened to a few words when he felt his bottleneck, which had been stuck for some time, start to loosen. It shocked and surprised him. He knew if he could get the complete cultivation technique, he would definitely make a breakthrough. Therefore, after leaving the hall, he immediately ran toward the voice. He did stop halfway, hesitating. After all, he was in the Supreme Palace. Although most of the experts were in the banquet hall now, there might still be some others hiding somewhere. It would be very difficult for him to explain himself if he were found. But, whenever he stopped, the voice would read the cultivation technique in his ear again. Although he did find it strange, he still could not help heading toward the voice. Finally, he came to a small yard, and the voice taught him a set of steps. He crossed the yard with the steps and entered the square tower. But it was empty inside without even a shadow, and the voice disappeared as well, as if it had never existed before. "What's going on? Where is this place?" He frowned. Judging from the strange restrictive spell outside, this should be an important place for Supreme Palace. But why is it so empty? Something is wrong. Suddenly, he had a bad feeling, and he turned quickly to run out of the tower. When he got outside, he saw a large crowd of people rush over, led by Ma Tianhe and his son. The palace master looked shocked when he saw Xingyang Ming from far away, and he bellowed furiously, "Xingyang Ming! How dare you steal from Supreme Palace?" Xingyang Ming was startled, and he felt a chill run down his back. He immediately knew that he was set up, and he panicked. "Palace Master, this is a misunderstanding. Please listen to my explanation." "Explain my ass." Hand over everything you have taken right now or die. Ma Tianhe's voice spread out like a powerful blast, and the might of a martial grandmaster contained in it shook Xingyang Ming's chest and made him spew out a mouthful of blood. He was completely in a panic, and he felt a chill in his heart as he saw the murderous eyes of the father and son. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly rang out beside his ear. Run to the left. As if he had found a straw to clutch at, he mustered all his strength into his legs and ran to the left without even thinking. Moreover, he was so fast that even he felt incredible. Humph! You are just a mere martial lord. Do you think you can run away from so many of us? With a sneer, Ma Tianhe rushed into the yard and walked quickly with the dance steps. However, just as he was about to cross it, a strange force suddenly pressed over from all directions and stopped him. Ma Tianhe was shocked, and he felt the force grow stronger and stronger until even he, a 3-stars martial grandmaster, could hardly resist it. Hurriedly, he leaped backward out of the yard. Dad, what's going on? Ma Feibai asked shockingly. They had walked many times through the restrictive spell in the yard, and such a situation was unprecedented. Ma Tianhe's face was livid and unsightly, as if he had just swallowed a rat. He clenched his jaws and said, Someone has modified the restrictive spell. What? But it is... Ma Feibai blurted. But he immediately realized something and shut his mouth. His eyes were filled with a look of disbelief. Even they, as martial grandmasters, did not have the ability to modify this restrictive spell, let alone Xingyang Ming, who was just a mere martial lord. It was also the reason why he and his father placed the square tower in it and did not post any guards here. They had too much confidence in it. Ma Tianhe's expression was extremely ugly. Hundreds of people from various powers were watching gloatingly from behind him. He had invited them here to show them his strength, and yet it was only a joke that he showed them in the end. Find him. I don't believe he can escape the Supreme Palace's boundary in such a short time, Ma Tianhe bellowed. Then, he took a deep breath and mustered a mouthful of primordial qi in his chest. Before opening his mouth and blowing it out into the sky, the crowd saw an almost corporeal sound wave shoot up into the sky and explode over the Supreme Palace. In the next moment, the whole void began to shake, with rings of sound waves spreading out rapidly, bringing his voice to as far as 10 miles away. All disciples of the Supreme Palace, pursue Xingyang Ming immediately and kill him on sight. The faces of those behind him who came for the banquet fell in an instant as they were awed by the might of a 3-stars martial grandmaster. Many of them nearly coughed blood under the thunderous roar and turned extremely pale. The furious roar had also hurt the meridians of a large number of Supreme Palace's low-ranking disciples. A look of fear came over their faces as they poured out in the direction where Xingyang Ming had fled. Xingyang Ming was the most wronged man right now. While fleeing desperately, he kept thinking about what was going on. Soon, he realized that he must be set up by someone. The fact that the man could frame him under the nose of everyone showed that he was not someone simple. Who on earth wants to frame me and why? Because you are from the Xingyang family. A faint voice rang in his ear. That startled him, and he halted suddenly in terror. Then, he saw a young man with a pair of cold eyes standing in front of him. Who are you? He was shocked, not only because this person knew what he was thinking, but the voice was exactly the voice that framed him just now. But why is he so young? And he is only a peak-level martial master. You have wasted all your time living to this age, so the strength of a martial master is enough to kill you, Yunxiao said calmly, and his murderous aura grew stronger and fiercer. You! Xingyang Ming was deeply frightened now. How do you know what I'm thinking? And, why did you set me up? Yunxiao sneered. Ask Xingyang Kuan these questions when you're dead. His murderous aura exploded out as he lifted his right hand and shouted. The purple air comes from the east, the cauldron that suppresses heaven and earth. I technique, demon moon. In Xingyang Ming's shocked eyes, a small purple cauldron suddenly expanded, while a pair of blood-red pupils emerged behind it. As he was in a rush, Yunxiao did not want to waste time on the ladder, so he used his spiritual attack and the most powerful strike as soon as the fight began. With just a few moves, He trapped Xingyang Ming in the cauldron and refined him into ashes. At that moment, many people of the Supreme Palace had arrived, about 30 of them, and all below the realm of martial lords. Yunxiao's eyes were still blood-red, and there was an evil gleam flicking on his face. In a voice as cold as ice, he said, "You will die with him as well." A tiger roar rang out across the woods. "Over there! Hurry up!" The tiger roar startled the disciples in the distance, and dozens of them hurriedly ran toward it. Suddenly, several figures flew over them. "It's Palace Master and the others. Let's follow them. Quick!" Initially, these disciples felt perturbed in their hearts, worrying that the foe might be too strong. But they found their confidence when they saw even their 2 palace masters making their way toward the sound, so they ran over wildly. But they had just run a few steps when a thunderous roar mixed with endless primordial chi blew into their faces, knocking them flying backward and making them cough blood. "Xingyang Ming, I swear I will kill you one day." Yunxiao had long driven his Tiger King chariot hundreds of miles away. He had killed 2 birds with 1 stone during this trip. Not only had he stolen everything in the Supreme Palace's treasury, but he had also shifted the blame to the Xingyang family. "Xingyang Kuan, you killed one of my people, and I will kill your whole family." A monstrous, murderous air exploded out of him. Meanwhile, a dark purple cloud emerged around the chariot as it rumbled across the sky. After returning to Yanwu, Yunxiao immediately entered the Divine Realm Tablet and began to meditate in seclusion. It took him only 1 day to break through the barrier of Martial Master and become a great Martial Master. "What? Going to Shangyang City?" Xiao Qingwang narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Young Master Yun, are you going to look for the Xingyang family?" Shangyang City was the capital of the Fire Crow Empire, the home to the aristocratic families and the imperial family. After breaking through, Yunxiao immediately summoned everyone. Looking at Xiao Qingwang's serious face, he nodded calmly and said, "Yes, I'm going to look for the Xingyang family." Li Chunyang's face was glum when he heard that name, but he shook his head helplessly and said, "I disagree. If we were to fight the Xingyang family now, it is no different from knocking a stone with an egg. Just one of their martial grandmasters was enough to throw us into confusion. Although Qingwang is also a martial grandmaster now, we are still far weaker than a family who has hundreds of years of history." Yunxiao said coldly, "Do you think they will not come to us if we don't take the initiative to attack? Xingyang Kuan has been missing for a few days, and do you think his family doesn't know we killed him? Whatever we do, we must take the initiative in our own hands. I already have a plan in mind, and I just need 11 people to come with me." 11 people? Xiao Qingwang said. They could assemble a team of 11 experts who were martial lords and above. Such a force was strong enough to defeat anyone in Tianshui, but it was not enough to deal with an aristocratic family in Firecrow. "Count me in." A voice came through the door, followed by a gust of strong wind, and the crowd felt a pressure blowing at their faces. Amidst the shocking gaze of everyone present, Qian Duoduo suddenly appeared in the great hall. Shrouded in an indescribable aura, he seemed a lot different from before. "Martial Grandmaster." Xiao Qingwang's pupils constricted. Looking at Qian Duoduo's aura, he said in surprise, "You've also broken through the barrier of Martial King." "Humph." With a disdainful look on his face, Qian Duoduo said coldly, "Why can't I when even you did it? In fact, it is nothing special to me." He was telling the truth. Even if he did not take the 9 orifices pill, he could still make the breakthrough as long as he meditated with the Broken Moon Scroll, but it just would not be as fast. Yunxiao glanced at Qian Duoduo and said with an approving look in his eyes, "The mind follows the heart. You have stabilized your cultivation base so quickly. Truly a man who practices the Broken Moon Scroll. Although Qingwang broke through before you, he is still a bit weaker than you." Qian Duoduo had a strange look on his face. The way Yunxiao talked was like a 3-year-old kid telling a 30-year-old adult, "You have good physical strength? Not bad." The feeling was hard to describe. Xiao Qingwang saw Qian Duoduo's expression and laughed. "Don't be unconvinced. I'm very convinced of what this lad has said. If he said I'm weaker than you, that means I'm really weaker than you." Now that we have two martial grandmasters, I think we can give it a try. At the thought of the strength Xiao had displayed during the battle against the martial grandmaster, Qian Duoduo did not have anything else to say. He had never seen a freak like this, who was a great martial master on the outside but had the strength of a martial lord or even a martial king. No! Li Chunyang rejected brusquely. Both of you have just broken through, and you will be no match for those seasoned martial grandmasters. Count me in as well. A strong voice rang out, and then a hearty laugh echoed in the great hall. The crowd turned and saw Nung Feichen stride over. He was beaming with energy and no longer looked old. It was plain that he had a strong vitality, and his lifespan had increased significantly. Thank you for the medicinal pills, young Master Yun. Nung Feichen bowed and thanked Yun Xiao gratefully, his heart filled with mixed emotions. Li Chunyang was somewhat stunned. He felt that the world had changed too fast. It was like he had just blinked once and 3 martial grandmasters had appeared. 3 experts from the realm he did not dare to imagine in the past were standing in front of him, bowing toward his grandson. You're welcome, sect leader Nung, and I really need your help this time, said Yun Xiao with a smile. Nung Feichen said seriously, You don't have to speak like that, my lord. Now that Diana sect has surrendered to Yenwu, we will naturally obey my lord's orders. The people around felt relief when they heard him state his stand clearly. After all, Diana sect was not weaker than Yenwu, and with Nung Feichen becoming a martial grandmaster now, it might be extremely difficult to control. But it seemed that they had worried too much. Yun Xiao said with satisfaction, Good. I'm glad that sect leader Nang thinks like that. As long as you follow me wholeheartedly, you will have the hope to become a martial emperor, or even a martial supreme in the future. He was telling the truth. As long as he could restore his strength of a 9th-tier alchemy supreme, these people could all advance to higher realms with just medicinal pills. However, they did not take it seriously and thought he just said that for the sake of courtesy. Yun Xiao stood up as an inexplicable aura emanated from him, filling everyone's heart with surprise and bewilderment, while giving them a feeling as if they were facing a guru. He said in a soft voice, The 3 of you, Grandpa, Dad, the 2 deputy sect leaders of Diana sect, Jimeng, Teacher Luo, Hongbing, and Yayan, you will immediately practice the 12 purple lightning array with me. 12 purple lightning array? Everyone was astonished, and Li Chunyang asked, What is this array? Why does it require 12 people? And how long do we have to learn it for? There was a glimmer of shock in Luo Yunshang's eyes and a blank look on her face, but a complicated look filled her eyes very quickly. Yun Xiao glanced at her from the corner of his eyes as he chuckled and said, It is only a lightning-attracting array that can attract different types of lightning according to the strength of those forming it. If it is formed by 12 martial sovereigns, it can attract the strongest lightning called the Universal Brahma Divine Lightning, which can wipe out even a warrior with an indestructible body. The crowd was taken aback. They thought it was only a simple and ordinary array, but it turned out to be such a heaven-defying one. As for how long, he chuckled and said, You only have 6 hours, which happens to be the duration of our journey from Yenwu to Xiangyang. 12 hover chariots rose into the sky from Yenwu and sped away in the direction of Xiangyang. Yun Xiao sat in his Tiger King chariot, meditating. He had simplified the essence of the array and taught everyone. Suddenly, a figure landed on his chariot and walked lightly toward him, sending a sweet fragrance into his nose. Yes? Is there anything else you don't understand? Yun Xiao woke up from his meditation as he stared at Luo Yunshang and asked softly. Luo Yunshang looked a little lonely as she stood there on the chariot, staring at the sky. At length, she sighed and said, You should know what I'm thinking. Can you tell me the news about that man? As she said that, her voice grew extremely anxious. Her delicate body seemed a little weak in the strong blowing wind, and her shoulder began to shiver. It was the first time she had asked seriously, hoping to get some definite information from Yun Xiao. Although she had long been convinced that Gu Feiyang was still alive, that was just her guess. She did not know what the truth was. He was just a prodigal. The so-called number 3 on the power chart and an alchemy supreme are all bullshit in my eyes, and yet so many innocent girls like you have been cheated by him and miss him day and night. He is not worthy of you. There was a look of melancholy in Yunxiao's eyes and a weariness that belonged to someone who had gone through everything life could offer, which was completely unmatched with his young face of a 15-year-old boy. That gave Luo Yunxiang a pause, and she seemed to have captured a strange feeling. Supposedly, when someone scolded Gu Feiyang like that, she would have flown into a rage. But for some unknown reason, she did not feel angry right now. Her heart fluttered slightly as she stared at Yunxiao's clear eyes, as if he were about to overlap with the figure in her heart. She remembered the pair of deep eyes she saw on the snowfall peak of Xianxia Temple, which seemed to have read through all the transmigrations and vicissitudes of life in the world. Although it was only a quick glimpse, she found them extremely familiar, as if she had been quietly staring at them for 1,000 years in one of her previous lives. Becoming loose are my clothes, yet I regret not, for I languish and suffer for him willingly. I forbid you from talking about him like that. If he is well, it will be sunny. There was a look of helplessness and bitterness in Yunxiao's eyes as he smiled wryly and said, "He's all right." Luo Yunxiang breathed a heavy sigh of relief. At that moment, all the emotions and speculation that had been accumulating in her head and weighing down on her heart were released. She felt she was completely relaxed, and her body was as light as a sheet about to take flight. "Thank you, Yunxiao." In the face of her student, Luo Yunxiang burst into tears of joy. Yunxiao smiled bitterly. He really did not know how to end this matter. Luo Yunxiang sobbed softly. Suddenly, she felt so tired that she leaned her forehead against Yunxiang's upper arm, and soon her tears wet his sleeve. She seemed to have not noticed her unusual behavior, and she asked in a low voice, "Can you tell me how is he doing?" Yunxiao frowned and said with a wry smile, "Teacher Yunxiang, now is not the time to think about this. I'll tell you when we get back." Only then did Luo Yunxiang notice her unusual behavior, and she quickly pulled herself away. Her face blushed as she said angrily, "If you don't tell me when we get back, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. Also, don't forget you still owe me a Guangling melody." When he saw her shy look, Yunxiao knew things were going to be troublesome. He gave a wry smile. "I think it is better to let Gu Feiyang play it for you in the future." That took Luo Yunxiang aback. Her eyes went wide, her face blank as she murmured, Would he play for me?" Somewhat speechless, Yunxiao cleared his throat and said, "I don't know, but I will tell him your request." "Thank you, Yunxiao." Luo Yunxiang was overjoyed, and she said with a grateful look on her face. Yunxiao was stressed out. He waved a hand hurriedly and said, "Teacher Yunxiang, you'd better return to your chariot and get familiar with the array." Luo Yunxiang smiled. It seemed that she had returned to normal. "He taught you this 12 purple lightning array, didn't he? It is actually one of the 3 ultimate arrays of Xianxia Temple. Although I've not used it before, the whole array is in my head. Since we are just going to attract a low-level lightning, there will be no problem for me. Do you plan to attack the Xingyang family with lightning?" A serious look came over Yunxiao's face as he nodded and said, "Yes. According to my estimation, by combining the strength of the 12 of us, we can at least attract one of the 5 elements divine lightning, which is more than enough to make them suffer." Luo Yunxiang pondered a moment and said, "We need to form the array over their mansion, but how are we going to prevent them from discovering us? They can easily stop us from completing the array with just a 2 stars martial grandmaster." Yunxiao smiled. "Don't worry, I've prepared for that." They discussed the details of the array for a while more before Luo Yunxiang returned to her chariot happily. The question that had troubled her for over 10 years had finally been answered. She had never felt so relaxed before, and she even had a vague feeling that she was about to make a breakthrough. After she had left, Yunxiao thought for a moment while frowning. At length he sighed and felt stressed out. Very soon, 12 chariots arrived outside the city of Xiangyang. Xiangyang was the capital of the Firecrow Empire, the most prosperous city within 10,000 miles. It was dozens of times the size of Tianshui's capital, with a population of about 100 million. The chariots stopped in the sky outside the city. They did not dare to enter rashly. There were a few powerful divine senses in the city that even Yunxiao was scared of. "We need to think of a way. If we fly straight into the city, We will surely attract the attention of those old monsters from the Temple of Revered Elders, Xiao Qingwang said through a voice transmission. The Firecrow Empire's Temple of Revered Elders is where the imperial family keeps their experts. As far as I know, there are more than 30 of them, and the strength of a martial king is the minimum requirement to join the temple. When he had just become a martial king, he had received an invitation from the Temple of Revered Elders, but he rejected it politely. The Temple of Revered Elders was under the direct command of the imperial family and did not take orders from anyone. Apart from serving the imperial family, its members were also in charge of the imperial city's safety. No one could order them, and as long as the imperial city was not under threat and the Emperor Firecrow did not give them orders, they would not strike even if the 4 major families were wiped out. Looking at the city ahead, Yunxiao began to perform incantation gestures with both hands. Soon, the arrays carved on the 12 chariots began to emanate beams of white light while the chariots gradually turned transparent. Before very long, they completely disappeared from the sky. We're ready. Let's go. Although we still can't escape the divine sense of some experts, this at least states clearly that we are not here to cause trouble openly. It was just a stealth mystic art, which could not last for too long and could not deceive everyone. As soon as the chariots entered Xiangyang's airspace, several strong divine senses rushed over from various places in the imperial city, targeting them in an instant. Yunxiao's face flickered slightly. These divine senses were very strong, and some were not weaker than his. But fortunately, they did not come with obvious hostility. They were just curious, and a few of them disappeared after observing for a moment. In the end, only 2 divine senses still followed them, as if to monitor them. Humph! Look all you like, Yunxiao sneered. Paying no more heed to the 2 divine senses, he drove the chariot directly over the Xingyang family. A cold smile came over his face as he took out the small box containing the outworld dark jade from his ring. With this thing as the array's eye, there is nothing Supreme Palace can do to clear its name. Xiangyang occupied a vast land, but even the Xingyang family, which had hundreds of years of history, could only purchase a not-so-large property at the edge of the capital. Although it was also an aristocratic family, it still could not compare with those superfamilies situated in the central region of the imperial city. In the common hall of the Xingyang family, the current head of the family, Xingyang Yi, was pacing back and forth. Over the last few days, he had been feeling restless when meditating. With his current cultivation base, he would not feel things for no reason. Has Xingyang Kuan not returned from Yanwu yet? He vaguely had a bad feeling. Xingyang Cheng, the chief steward of the family, frowned and said, "No, my lord. Elder Kuan has not returned yet." A worried look came into Xingyang Yi's eyes. He should be back by now. Although he is just a 1-star martial grandmaster, he is still a genuine martial grandmaster. Moreover, he has 2 intrinsic mystic artifacts. Even if he failed the task, he should be able to come back safely. Yanwu is just a small city of Tianshui. There is no way it can trap him. The chief steward did not understand either. Could it be that Elder Kuan suddenly had an urgent matter to attend somewhere else? Humph! With the heir of the family dead now, how could he not know what is more important? But then, it is good that Xingyang Jie had died. It will be better if the rest are all dead as well, so that my grandson can have the opportunity to be the heir. A grim sneer appeared on Xingyang Yi's face. Xingyang Jie was not his descendant, but one from the branch who was made the heir because his grandson was too useless. Xingyang Cheng dared not to say anything about that, and he quickly changed the topic. Even so, Xingyang Jie is the Grand Elder's direct descendant, and if this were to be learned by him, it is precisely the reason why I sent Xingyang Kuan to find out the truth and bring the murderer back to the Grand Elder. Xingyang Yi said gloomily, "I had sent someone to bring a letter to Jutian sect as soon as I was informed of what happened. The reply said the Grand Elder is in secluded meditation, and no one knows when he will come out. We need to catch the murderer as soon as possible. Otherwise, when the Grand Elder comes out and learns that his direct descendant was murdered, even I won't be able to withstand his wrath." Frowning, Xingyang Cheng asked, "Should we send another person to Yanwu?" The family head paced a few steps while pondering, then said in a cold voice, "I remember Fish from the Chung family was murdered together with Xianxia. Although he was not someone important in his family, he was still from the Chung family. The Xingyang family cannot be the only one who is looking for the murderer. Inform the Chung family and find out their response." "Yes." Xingyang Cheng's face lit up. "If the Chung family also sends someone over, perhaps Tianshui will catch and bring the murderer to us." "Humph. I really want to see who is this rampant guy bold enough to kill the heir of the Xingyang family." Suddenly, he frowned and asked, "Xingyang Ming went to attend the Supreme Palace's celebration banquet. Has he not returned yet either?" Xingyang Cheng answered, "No, I haven't seen him. He was supposed to have returned yesterday." This? Xingyang Yi suddenly felt frustrated, and an uneasiness crept into his heart. He had a vague feeling that there was some kind of connection between these two matters, which stirred his mind, but he just could not link them up. As a result, the restlessness in him grew stronger. Who goes there? Suddenly he threw his head back, and his gaze seemed to have penetrated the ceiling and looked at the sky. Rumble. Right at that moment, a great force smote the yard in the mansion and spread out abruptly, while a sense of fear rose in Xingyang Yi's heart. The force not only contained a violent aura, but also a chill that went deep to the bone. He was a 4-stars martial grandmaster, and yet he still had that feeling. He could not imagine what others would feel in the face of such power. "Who are you? How dare you attack the Xingyang family?" Xingyang Yi roared as he rushed out of the hall. When he got outside, he saw a large, deep pit in the yard, with tiny electric arcs crackling around it, and plumes of cold air drifting out and spreading across the mansion. Extreme cold energy. This is the Supreme Palace's extreme cold energy. He sucked in a cold breath and could not believe what he saw. In the entire Firecrow Empire, only the energy cultivated by the Supreme Palace could have such an extreme chill. Moreover, the energy in front of him was so pure that even Ma Tianhe might not be able to achieve. What is going on? Could something have happened to Xingyang Ming? Xingyang Yi looked up in shock and fury, but the sky was clear, without even a cloud, let alone a figure. "Where are you? Show yourself now. Why do you want to hide like some thieves?" He flew into a rage and bellowed. The whole Xingyang family was woken up by the rumble just now, and people began to run out, searching for the enemy. Suddenly, electric arcs emerged in the sky again. They appeared out of thin air, their color like the coldest ice. They gradually gathered over the mansion, their numbers growing rapidly. Soon, electric arcs completely enveloped the sky over the mansion, turning it into an icy cold, pale blue pool of lightning, with numerous blue lightning bolts flashing in it. Meanwhile, the voice of a kid rang out of a room, sounding very excited. "Mummy! Look! The sky is so beautiful!" Almost all the people in the mansion had come out after hearing the explosion. They stared at the sky in shock and fury, with a look of disbelief on their faces. Who was it? Who dared to provoke the Xingyang family? No, this was no longer a provocation. This was an attack. A pale blue light shone on Xingyang Yi's fearful face, flickering and shifting. If such a powerful lightning bolt were to strike down, it would not leave just a large pit in the yard, but the whole mansion would turn into ashes. He was completely struck dumb, and he felt a chill rise from the bottom of his feet to the back of his head. Suddenly, his pupils constricted, and he bellowed, "There you are! You can't hide from me!" As electric arcs continued to gather, Xingyang Yi finally found where the enemy was hiding. He waved his hands crazily, and rings of powerful primordial qi exploded out of him, transforming into several shadows that took the shape of different demon beasts and rushed up into the sky while roaring and screeching. Even in Firecrow Empire, a 4-stars martial grandmaster was still a mighty existence. Looking down coldly from his chariot, Yun Xiao snorted and said, "He finally found us. But, so what?" He performed an incantation gesture with one hand while the experts on the other 11 chariots walked to the front of their vehicles and performed the same gesture as well. Surrounded by the chariots was the pool of lightning filled with chaotic energy. A stone about the size of a fist could be seen hovering in the middle while constantly emitting wisps of cold air, turning the color of all the electric arcs in the pool aquamarine. Strike now! Metal divine lightning and water divine lightning. Xianxia roared and sent an incantation seal into the pool of lightning. The tremendous and violent energy was triggered in an instant, turning into an aquamarine bolt of lightning that smashed down from the sky. The void was shaking and cracking as the bolt pierced through the air toward its target. What he used was the principle of mutual generation and overcoming of the 5 elements. The bolt of lightning was the combination of the metal divine lightning and water divine lightning. Metal generated water, and water was best at triggering the extreme cold energy in the outworld dark jade. The energy had fused with the lightning, which gave it its aquamarine color and made it even more powerful. Rumble! The attack unleashed by Xianxia with all his strength dissolved in a flash under the divine lightning, while the powerful blast generated by the explosion slammed onto the mansion, spreading out in all directions. But at the same time, there was a blast that bounced back into the sky and shook the edge of the lightning pool, rendering the stealth of the 12 chariots ineffective and revealing them to the naked eyes. In the blink of an eye, all the buildings of the Xianxia family were swallowed by a sea of blue light. The mansion, which had stood for centuries, was completely enveloped in the explosion and clouds of dust and smoke. At length, when the smoke faded away and the dust settled, everyone was struck dumb, because almost the whole mansion was gone. Fortunately, Xianxia's attack had countered most of the power, so even though the buildings were destroyed, most of the direct family members were saved by the experts in the family. However, almost all the branch family members, servants, and women vanished together with the mansion. Son of a bitch! No matter who you are, I swear I will kill you today. Xianxia walked out of the explosion, covered in dust from head to toe. Much of his skin was scorched, and there was even a thin layer of ice on it. Meanwhile, his eyes were shot with blood. The Xianxia family had stood in Firecrow Empire for centuries, but never once had its mansion been completely destroyed by someone like today. Although there were not many casualties in terms of its core members, the humiliation was unprecedented. Moreover, even if he managed to kill the foe today, he was certain that his title as the family head would be deprived of him, and he might even be severely punished. Elders of the family, let's attack together. We must kill these people today. He roared while leaping into the air and leading the attack. In the Xianxia family, only martial grandmasters could become elders, so there were only a few of them. Although many of them were Xianxia's foes, they still united as one and listened to his order at the critical moment. Several figures rushed out of the rubble and flew up into the sky after him. Together they released their auras, targeting the 12 chariots. Meanwhile, the lightning pool gradually calmed down while the energy inside stabilized. Where are they? Xianxia was startled. Under his divine sense, he found all 12 chariots empty. Xianxia and others had stealthily retreated right after the attack, abandoning their chariots and making them hover in the air. They even left the outworld dark jade in the lightning pool, which was glowing with a strange light even now. Damn you! Boiling with rage and humiliation, Xianxia threw his head back and screamed. His voice was so loud that it was clearly heard by everyone in the capital. Suddenly, an elder cried out in a shocked voice as he stared in terror at the outworld dark jade. My lord! The level of this stone is very high. It is at least a 7th-tier object. The reason he said that was because he could only identify items up to the 7th tier. Stunned, Xianxia turned to look at the outworld dark jade incredulously. Meanwhile, about 100 miles away outside Xiangyang, a Tiger King chariot zoomed through the sky, heading toward Yanwu. The people in the chariot were extremely excited and could not believe that they had just attacked the Xianxia family with lightning. It was such a crazy deed that they reckoned even those super aristocratic families with thousands of years of history would think twice or thrice before doing it. After the excitement, Li Chunyang looked worried. I think the Xianxia family is going completely crazy now. Although they won't trace it back to us so soon, we need to be prepared for battles. When the time comes, their retaliation will wash over us like a fierce torrent. Retaliation? Humph! A ferocious look came over Yunqiao's face as he said coldly, We will see only after they recover from the blow we just gave them. Everyone frowned and did not quite understand what he meant. It seemed that the blow was serious, and it had destroyed the whole mansion. But the core members of the Xingyang family, especially those experts, were still alive and unhurt. Suddenly, Yunxiao's face flickered. Staring ahead, he cried out in a serious voice, "Watch out! There's an expert in front of us." His cry alarmed everyone. They kept their guard up and sent out their divine sense, yet they found nothing unusual. However, none of them would doubt what he said. "You are good, little boy. How did you find me?" At that moment, a voice came from the void ahead, where the air twisted and distorted, revealing an old man with a white beard, who laid on his back in midair. He yawned and stretched his back, then looked at Yunxiao with his drowsy eyes. But as soon as he did that, a startled look came over his face. He rubbed his eyes with a hand, somewhat incredulous, and said in a shocked voice, How's this possible? You are just a little boy. Are you really just 15 years old? But you are already a 4th-tier alchemist. Or 3rd tier." The old man sucked in a cold breath. To him, it did not matter whether Yunxiao was a 3rd-tier or 4th-tier alchemist. What mattered was that the latter was only 15 years old, and he was absolutely sure about that. The people on the chariots were on high alert. They could not sense the old man's aura at all, and their divine sense went through him as if there were no one ahead. If they had not seen him with their own eyes, they would not have known that there was a man in front of them. They had never experienced this before, which made them extremely nervous. Yunxiao snorted and said with a smile, "It's my business, so why does it concern you, my lord? We are in a hurry. Please let us through." "In a hurry? Hee. You are afraid those little ones from the Xingyang family will catch up with you, aren't you?" The old man smiled lazily and said, "The strongest ones among you are 3 martial grandmasters, and from what I can see, they are still fresh in the realm. TSK. TSK. Today's young people are becoming more and more ignorant." The 3 martial grandmasters almost fainted, especially Neng Feichen and Xiao Qingwang. Had it not been for the chance to break through and become martial grandmasters, their lives would have come to an end soon. And yet, this old man called them young people. But, in the face of the old man, whose strength was unknown but surely stronger than theirs, their nerves were tensed and they did not dare to relax their vigilance. Yunxiao's face turned cold. "Let me repeat myself. It's our business, and why does it concern you? Please get out of the way." His tone grew cold, and the politeness was gone. The old man froze for a moment. He did not expect Yunxiao to speak to him in that tone. Rolling his eyes inwardly, his face suddenly turned dark as he said in a deep voice, "Why does it concern me? You little punks just attacked someone in Xiangyang. Do you think the few old things, including me, are mere decoration? And now you have the nerve to say it doesn't concern me? Do you know who I am? I reckon you must be spies from either the Sky Fragrance Empire or the Wooden Sun Empire." The 2 empires the old man mentioned were the Firecrow Empire's neighbors, and together, they were the 3 major empires that occupied the southern region of the heavenly martial continent. By accusing them of being spies from either one of the empires, he had given himself a reasonable excuse to kill them. While frowning, Yunxiao asked, "Who are you?" The old man glared at him and snapped, "My identity is my business, and why does it concern you?" Everyone, including Yunxiao, was speechless. "What exactly do you want? I know you are not trying to capture us, or you would not have talked so much. And we are certainly no match for you. Why don't you just tell me what you want?" That gave the old man a pause, but then an approving look came into his eyes, and he said, "It really saves a lot of time when talking to a clever person." Well, he thought of his identity, and he was somewhat embarrassed to say what he wanted. After a moment of hesitation, he finally said, "The array you put out over the Xingyang family looks quite interesting. Although it is nothing to me, I feel some parts of it are not bad. So, let me have a look at its diagram. Of course, I am not taking it from you because it is really nothing to me. I just find it interesting, that's all." "It is nothing to you?" Yunxiao sneered in his heart. "It is one of the 3 ultimate arrays of the Shenxiao Temple passed down since ancient times. At its maximum strength, it can attract the Brahma divine lightning, which can destroy even the holy city. You are merely a martial emperor, and yet you claim it is nothing to you? What a poser. Let's see how long can you posture for. The old man was actually a martial emperor of the 7 constellations realm. In the empire, such strength made him an absolutely supreme expert. Apart from Juqian sect, the backer of Firecrow's imperial family, there should be no other existences stronger than a martial emperor. Judging from that, even if the old man were not a guardian of the empire, he should be someone who held great power in his hand. But Xianxia pretended to be relieved and said in a relaxed voice, "Oh, so you think that array is interesting. But before we came out, our palace master told us that it is the secret of our sect and asked us not to leak it to others. If we give it to you, we will be seriously punished when we get back." "Palace master?" the old man asked suspiciously. "Which sect are you from? Why have I never heard of any sect that has this kind of lightning-attracting array?" "This?" Xianxia said hesitatingly. "I can't tell you. Our sect is still new in Firecrow Empire, and our roots are too shallow to compare with those sects with hundreds or even thousands of years of history. If others learn that we had just sneak-attacked the Xingyang family, it will bring great disaster to our sect." The old man quickly went through all the new sects in his head, and soon a few suspicious targets surfaced. He deliberately darkened his face and said coldly, "How do I know if you are telling the truth? If I let you go, but it turns out that you are spies sent here by the other 2 empires, it will make me into a laughingstock of all." Xianxia frowned and said difficultly, "Actually, it's possible for us to give you the array. Well, as the saying goes, money makes the mare go. If you can give us some compensation, we are willing to be punished when we get back. Right, guys?" "Ugh. Yeah." The crowd immediately understood what he meant, and they nodded with their eyes lighting up. "If we lost the array diagram, the palace master will surely severely punish us when we get back. I shiver whenever I think of that extreme cold energy. If it were injected into my body, I think I would not be able to get rid of it for the rest of my life. Last time when Zhang went out for a task and lost a mystic weapon, he was beaten so seriously by the palace master that it took him half a year to recover. Unless we can get appropriate compensation, we will not hand over the array diagram even if we die." Cough. Cough. Xianxia coughed a few times before he said helplessly, "You heard them, my lord. It is not that we don't want to give it to you, but we have fears. As a martial emperor of the 7 constellations realm, you just have to give us something you deem as junk to make us feel better." The old man was stunned. "What logic is that? I'm here to rob them, just that I can't do it openly due to my status. How can they be so ignorant? They know I am a martial emperor, and yet they are negotiating with me? As a martial emperor, you wouldn't think of robbing a group of juniors openly, would you?" Xianxia frowned and said suspiciously. That immediately made the old man give up the idea of robbing them. If others knew that he robbed something from a group of juniors, including a 15-year-old boy, he would not be able to stay in Firecrow Empire anymore. Cough. 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 The old man coughed violently. Then, with an angry look, he said coldly, "Who do you think I, Zhu Jin, am? Robbing something from a group of juniors like you? How ridiculous. I just find that array interesting, and I will throw it away after glancing at it. Do you think a mighty martial emperor like me will carry out deep research on such a low-level thing? In any case, I will not take it from you without paying. It's your fated chance to have come across me. Well, I will just give you something good that you can use for the rest of your life. I want a 5th-tier mystic weapon, a 6th-tier medicinal pill, a complete suit of armor. 5th tier. I want the Earth's ear. Give me a divine ability. I just want a saint transformation pill." Before Zhu Jin could offer them anything, everyone cried out noisily and excitedly. Xianxia said embarrassingly, "They are a bunch of ignorant people. Well, I just want 200,000 superior-grade primordial stones." Zhu Jin's nostrils flared. "How dare you fool me? Fool you?" There was an innocent look on Xianxia's face as he said in surprise, "You are a martial emperor. We will be digging our own graves if we dare to fool you. Ugh. Are you thinking of not paying us? Or, you can't afford to give us what we want? Cough. Cough. Do you think I am so poor? Although these things are precious, they are nothing to me. But no one would bring so many things with him all day. Besides, your shabby array isn't worth that much. How about I give you 20,000 superior grade primordial stones and you give me that array diagram? What? 20,000? Superior grade or supreme grade? Did I hear that right? Xianxia widened his eyes and looked incredulous. Zhu Jin said angrily while blushing, 100,000 then. I won't pay more than that. Your shabby array diagram isn't worth even 10,000. Xianxia snorted. 100,000 superior grade primordial stones? We respect you as an expert and a senior, and yet you treat us like beggars. We prefer death to humiliation. We will live or die with the array diagram today, and we will not bring shame to our sect. Zhu Jin flew into a rage and could hardly hold himself back. I am a mighty martial emperor. I can't believe I've wasted so much time talking nonsense with these juniors. If it weren't for the fact that there are other divine senses around, I would have killed and robbed them. But someone is watching me now, and if this were to spread, the whole world would be laughing at me. He ground his teeth and said, Don't push me too far, boy. Name your price. Xianxia snorted coldly. He knew what this Zhu Jin feared. It seemed that Firecrow Empire was also in constant internal strife. He held up 3 fingers and said, 300,000 superior grade primordial stones, or you can kill us right now. Zhu Jin sucked in a cold breath. Although he could afford 300,000, it still pained him to fork out so much in one go. But when he thought of the array diagram that could attract lightning, his heart was immediately filled with excitement. He was cultivating a lightning-type cultivation technique, which was extremely rare and difficult to cultivate. However, if he could attract lighting at any time, he was certain that his cultivation base would take a great leap. Therefore, he had to get that array diagram. Fine. I will give you 300,000. But if I find something wrong with the array diagram or if it isn't worth the price, you will taste my wrath. The old man briskly threw out a storage bag, which Xianxia took over and put away without even looking at the contents. Since he was too embarrassed to rob them, he would not be dishonest now. While smiling, he threw over the simplified array diagram. Zhu Jin's eyes lit up as soon as he gave it a careful look, and he put it away excitedly. The pain in his heart was gone in an instant, and he said with satisfaction, Not bad. It is indeed interesting. Take care of yourself, since you've just given the Xingyang family such great humiliation. Don't think you can hide from everyone. Firecrow Empire is not as big as you think. Xianxia smiled and said, I will, if they still have the power to do anything. Thank you for the generous compensation, senior. Till we meet again. Wasting no more time, he sent several incantation seals into the chariot, which immediately zoomed into the distance at maximum speed. In the sky over the Xingyang family, Xingyang Yi and a group of elders were looking at the outworld dark jade in the lightning pool. The power emanating from the stone shocked and terrified even them. Although they were all experienced and knowledgeable people, they could not recognize it, and did not know how to retrieve it from the lightning pool. My lord, do you think we should retrieve these 12 chariots first? The lightning pool seems to rely on them to operate. One of the elders suggested. You are right. This stone should be the key to finding the culprits. They should have fled before they could take it with them. We will find them with this stone. Xingyang Yi's face was grave. Even if the culprits were found and chopped to 1,000 pieces, the humiliation his family had suffered would not be washed away. He was certain that the whole imperial city would be talking about this incident tomorrow, and many people would be laughing and making fun of him. At the thought of that, Xingyang Yi felt he was about to explode with anger as he threw out a palm and slapped at one of the chariots. As his palm hit the chariot, it suddenly glowed with white light, bright like it was scorched under high heat. Then the rest of them lit up as well. They floated in the air like 12 luminous objects, illuminating everything within hundreds of meters around them. This Xianxia was startled, and a bad feeling surged in his heart. Meanwhile, the outworld dark jade in the lightning pool seemed to sense something and began to turn transparent while beams of extreme cold energy shot out of it, freezing the air. An elder sucked in a cold breath and then bellowed in horror. "Not good! These chariots are going to blow themselves up." Only then did Xianxia wake up from his shock. He flew into a rage instantly and roared, "Everyone, protect the members of the family. Listen up, the descendants of the Xianxia family. Run for your life." The 12 chariots were only third-tier mystic weapons, so they could still resist the explosion, but the outworld dark jade in the lightning pool gave him a deep sense of fear and shock. In the face of the cold energy emanating from it, he felt as if his soul were about to freeze. If that thing were to explode, at the thought of that, he felt his whole body turn cold, and he could no longer calm down. All martial grandmasters of the Xianxia family unleashed their trump cards and attacked the lightning pool together. At the moment when their family was facing a deadly crisis, everyone united as one and exerted their greatest strength. But, rumble! The 12 chariots exploded, blowing apart like 12 mini-suns in the sky, filling all eyes with a blinding light and shaking the world with a tremendous blast. But very soon, a blue light broke out, devouring all of the white light as it bloomed like a huge blue lotus flower in the sky over the capital. For a moment, the whole Xianxia turned pale blue. The blue light that devoured all the other light and power did not make any sound, but it gave everyone a sense of emptiness as if the world had ended. All the explosions quieted down under the blue light. Almost all the experts in Xianxia were terrified, and they shot up into the sky one after another to find out what had happened. Zhu Jin looked at the direction where Yunxiao's chariot had disappeared into, which led to the Supreme Palace. Are they really from Supreme Palace? While frowning, he thought for a moment and then murmured to himself, the energy leaking from that boy just now was indeed the type of extreme cold, and so did the lightning they attracted. Moreover, among the newly established sects over recent years, only the Supreme Palace has such strength. But he pondered again, but he could not find an answer. Why does Supreme Palace want to start a feud with the Xianxia family? Hee, old freak Zhu. I can see you have just cheated something good from those juniors. Suddenly, a voice came through the void. Zhu Jin's face flickered, and he snorted angrily and said, "This is none of your business? Oh Dijia, get the hell out of here." Hee, that lightning-attracting array is at least a 6th-tier treasure, but you only paid 300,000 superior-grade primordial stones to get it. TSK, where can I find such a good deal? Ao Dijia continued to mock. Go away. Zhu Jin held up a middle finger and snapped. If you utter any more nonsense, I'll come over and pluck your tongue now. What? Can't I? Ao Dijia's voice halted abruptly. That gave Zhu Jin a pause, and he thought, have I really scared that old freak? How is this possible? Just as he was puzzled, a sheet of white light suddenly broke out in the distant sky over the capital, immediately followed by a blue light that devoured everything, almost enveloping the whole Xianxia. And that direction was where the Xianxia family was situated. That is... Zhu Jin sucked in a cold breath. The huge blue light brought him an extremely cold chill. What kind of power could spread so far and even make him, a martial emperor, palpitate? Whoosh! His face turned serious as he flew in that direction immediately. With Zhu Jin's speed, it took him less than a breath to travel such a short distance. Meanwhile, he felt a few other powerful auras flying over at great speed as well, one of whom was Ao Dijia, while the rest were old freaks like him who rarely showed up in public. Although they were all in the capital, they did not see each other often. Several figures reached over the Xianxia family almost at the same time. Due to their high speed, they almost could not stop themselves and had to glide a dozen meters in the air before coming to a complete stop. In the next instant, what they saw stunned them completely. Their faces were blank and their eyes widened in shock. All the buildings of the Xianxia family were gone, and there was a huge ice sculpture standing tall in front of them right at the site where the mansion once stood. What terrified these old freaks who stood at the pinnacle of the Firecrow Empire was that all the people of the Xianxia family were frozen inside the ice sculpture. The expression on each face was lifelike, mostly afraid and aghast. The few elders of the family in the air were locked in postures of unleashing some powerful attacks, with anger and fear in their eyes that shocked anyone who looked at them. All the people of the Xingyang family were frozen, including even their family head Xingyang Yi. Although each of them looked lifelike, it was impossible that they could still be alive under the extreme cold energy. In other words, all the members of the Xingyang family, as long as they were in the mansion, were dead. Even the fowl and livestock they kept were frozen in the same posture as the moment they died. It was absolutely a work of art that these old freaks had never seen before. In fact, its beauty was suffocating. But none of them had the mood to admire it. They only felt chills in their hearts, which could not be blocked even with their powerful primordial chi, and their faces had turned livid. For a moment, they were so shocked that they did not know what to do next. In just a flash, an aristocratic family that had stood for centuries in the Fire Crow Empire was completely wiped out, turning into a work of art. What the hell is going on here? One of the old freaks could not bear it anymore, so he swallowed hard and asked. Dija's face was livid as he said in a deep voice, "This cold air is extremely evil, resulting from some sort of abnormal detonation. In Fire Crow Empire, the people who are experts in such energy—" "Supreme Palace," Zhu Jin blurted out. Staring at him, Dija snorted coldly and said, "Old freak Zhu, you saw those people just now, so you are the most suitable person to tell us more about this." All eyes turned to Zhu Jin immediately, which made him very uncomfortable. While fuming, he said, "What do you mean, old freak Ao? Are you suspecting that I am related to those people?" Dija folded his arms over his chest and sneered, "Don't be so nervous. I'm not interested in exposing your nasty business. It's just that what happened to the Xingyang family is a serious matter. Who among us here dares to say he can withstand the power of this explosion? A power that can threaten even martial emperors, Everyone was shocked, and there was a flicker of enthusiasm flashing through their eyes. If such power was obtained by any sect, its strength would definitely experience a qualitative leap. One of them said in a cold voice, "Zhu Jin, are those people really from Supreme Palace?" Zhu Jin seemed afraid of this person, as he slightly released his primordial chi to defend against the menacing aura emanating from the latter. "It is just one of my speculations. Apart from the Supreme Palace, who in Firecrow Empire can cultivate such lethal cold energy?" The man with a dark, unsmiling face glanced coldly at the shocking work of art, his chest heaving with excitement. Then he snorted coldly and said, "That Supreme Palace is nothing, but it seems to have some kind of connection with a super sect in the north. What I fear is that after we hit the hare, we will attract the wolves." Dija's face was flickering as well. There are already many powers in the heavenly martial realm eyeing up the resources held by the three empires in the south. "Do you think this is their work?" he said worriedly. "As far as I know, the Supreme Palace doesn't have much contact with the Xingyang family, so why would it want to wipe out the whole family? Humph. With the Iron Rule announced by the divine city of the Holy Realm, who in the other three regions dares to reach their hands into the south?" Zhu Jin sneered disdainfully. "At most, they would do it for a personal feud. And, even if we give them the key of Mount Meru, do they dare to take it?" Dija gave him a scornful look and scolded, "You know nothing." Yes, the divine city of the Holy Realm had announced the rule, but so what? Many superpowers do not listen to them. Many years ago, after Gu Feiyang slaughtered everything within 8,000 miles in the East Sea, the sovereign of the Four Seas, the Bo family, had besieged the Holy Realm with hundreds of Nine Heavens experts from the Sea Clan, demanding the Holy Realm to hand him over. But those fellows in the divine city simply activated an array and hid behind the doors, not even daring to say a word. Zhu Jin flew into a rage. "Old codger Ao, you mean to pick on me, don't you? The martial sovereign vanquisher, Gu Feiyang, and the sovereign of the Four Seas, the Bo family, who are those people? They are all existences who can annihilate the various powers in the south with just a finger. Damn you! Why don't you mention martial sovereign tyrant, Ao Chongkong, who has an indestructible body? or the three saints of the divine city? Fuck. Audiobook said calmly in a cold voice. Humph. Can the Holy Realm hold down the other superpowers like the Xianxia Temple, Red Moon City, Beiming Dark Palace, or Long Family of Skyridge? When he saw Zhu Jin about to scold him again, he quickly turned and said, "Tell us what you think, Xianpai. Firecrow Empire belongs to your family." Xianpai thought for a moment and said, "Let's not make wild guesses. The first thing we need to do is to find out who did this. Zhu Jin, since you've seen them before, you will find out who is behind them." He slapped his forehead and said, "This is going to be troublesome. It looks like I need to go to Jutian's sect. But how am I going to tell Xingyang Huo about this? At the beginning, you all just wait for the mayhem to ensue, as if it is not your business." Zhu Jin sneered. "Look what has happened now. His whole family is gone. I'm sure Xingyang Huo will go crazy this time. None of you will have a good time when he goes berserk." Xianpai said angrily, "Are you not bashful while saying that? As the Grand Elder of the Temple of Revered Elders, you did not do your duty of keeping the Empire safe. Look at the extreme cold energy down there. It is still spreading out in all directions. Soon, the area several miles around the Xingyang family will be affected and become inhabitable. If this were to continue, the whole Xiangyang will be finished." Zhu Jin shook his head and said, "You're exaggerating. We just need to seal these extreme cold energies by laying down an array together. How could I know they would cause such a big mess, when the strongest people among them were just one-star martial grandmasters?" One-star martial grandmasters? Could the Supreme Palace really be behind this? Xianpai murmured to himself, his eyes filled with disbelief. Then, he sighed helplessly and said, "Let's put that aside for now and seal up the place together first. Otherwise, the capital is really finished." Under his arrangement, the few people spread out and surrounded the giant ice sculpture. Each of them emanated extremely a strong primordial qi, forming a circle around the ice sculpture. At that moment, Xianpai locked his hands in an incantation gesture and intoned something under his breath. A moment later, a huge seal flew out of his hands, hovering over the sculpture, and then turned into a sphere and spread out. Meanwhile, an ancient-looking character of seal appeared in the center of the sphere, glowing with a golden light as it fell down gradually. Everyone quickly poured primordial qi into the seal, causing it to burst into a golden light before fading away in the air. "It's done. There will be no problem here for the time being. You may go back, and from now on, watch out for any suspicious people entering Xiangyang." When he had finished, Xianpai disappeared from the sky. The people here were all supreme figures of the various aristocratic families. They shook their heads and left, but at the same time, each of them was palpitating. An aristocratic family with hundreds of years of history was wiped out just like that. It was so unexpected and ridiculous. They all felt sad for the misfortune of the Xingyang family. When Zhu Jin saw Aodijia staring at him with a strange smile, he snorted angrily as he turned and flew away. Soon, the incident of the Xingyang family was learned by everyone in the capital. Many people even purposely came to have a look and were stunned by the huge ice sculpture. There was a restrictive spell jointly laid by Xianpai and the others about 10 meters away from the sculpture, which prevented anyone from getting closer. As it was too crowded, many people were trampled to death. Seeing that, the imperial family quickly sent the imperial guards to lock down the area, and only then did the crowd leave. But all kinds of rumors had already spread throughout the whole Xiangyang, most of which said that the Xingyang family was wiped out by heaven with lightning because they had committed too many evils. The various aristocratic families in Xiangyang raised their defense to the highest level, calling back their experts carrying out tasks outside and sending their heirs and gifted juniors away, lest they met with the same misfortune as the Xingyang family. At that moment, almost all eyes were focused on the Supreme Palace, because after the people who attended the banquet returned, everyone was told about the feud between the Supreme Palace and Xingyang family. Together with the effect of the extreme cold energy, the culprit had been on every tongue. Ding Linger of the Tianyuan Trading Company was the only one who had guessed the truth. "What? You said Li Yunxiao did this? Impossible. I've gone to the Xingyang family, and I'm certain that all of them were killed in a flash. If Li Yunxiao had such strength, he would have reigned supreme over Firecrow Empire and not been hiding in a mere Yanwu. Yu Rong looked incredulous as he shook his head repeatedly. Although Ding Linger was rarely wrong with her speculations, it was too ridiculous so time that he could not believe it all. Ding Linger sighed and said, "You are not the only one. Even I find it hard to believe. But I'm certain that it must be Li Yunxiao. Ma Tianhe is the strongest man in the Supreme Palace, but he is just a 3-star martial grandmaster, and there are only 4 martial grandmasters in his sect. Even if he combines the strength of his entire sect, he is still no match for the Xingyang family." Yu Rong said, "If the Supreme Palace can't do it, then Yanwu is even worse. The city's strongest man is a 9-star martial king. So how can they wipe out the Xingyang family? Miss, this is the funniest joke you've ever told." Ding Linger paid no mind to Yu Rong's words. Instead, a strong look of doubt came over her face as she murmured, "How did they do it? This Li Yunxiao is too mysterious. None of the information we've come out with is useful, and I'm sure there must be a missing piece. But what is it?" "You think too much, miss," Yu Rong smiled. "This cannot be done by Li Yunxiao and his people. Our investigation organization can be ranked in the top 10 on the heavenly martial continent, and he is just a prodigal son from a small state. If we want, we can even find out how many times he had wet his bed when he was small. We won't miss anything." Ding Linger did not say anything but just paced back and forth in the hall. At length, she shook her head helplessly and said, "I can't think of anything. Sir Yu, from today on, Yanwu will enjoy first-class treatment from me. No matter what they want, as long as we can do it, we will support them fully." Yu Rong sucked in a cold breath and said shockingly, "First-class treatment? Miss, do you have any idea what you are doing?" He had never doubted any of Ding Linger's decisions, but he really could not help but question her this time. Ding Linger gave him a sweet smile and said, "Of course, this could be the biggest and most successful investment of my life." Yu Rong paused a moment as he frowned, and then asked doubtfully, "Miss, you didn't fall in love with that Li Yunxiao, did you?" "Yes, he is handsome and has an elegant bearing, but his status and—" "Sir Yu," Ding Linger snapped shyly, "what nonsense are you talking about?" Then, she stamped her foot and chased Yu Rong out of the hall. A moment later, she heard Yu Rong's voice coming through the door. A grown girl can't be kept at home." That only angered her further. After brooding over that for some moment, she suddenly burst into laughter, feeling amused by her own embarrassed look. Meanwhile, at the Cheng family in Xiangyang, inside a grand mansion, the present family head of the Cheng family, Cheng Feng, was studying an incomplete Go game with a zither playing in the background and an incense burning on the side. Across him sat an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion, who had a smile in his eyes and was not speaking. Cheng Feng held a white stone in his fingers and hesitated about what move to make. After a long time, he finally put down the stone and sighed. "Master Bailey's game is so mysterious. I've been pondering over it for half a month, and yet not only am I still unable to solve it, but when I focus on it, my heart is filled with a faint sense of horror. It is too profound for me to understand. Please enlighten me, Master." Bailey Gongjin stroked his beard and smiled. "I can't solve this incomplete Go game either." Cheng Feng was stunned, and he said in bewilderment, "Even Master Bailey can't solve it? Then this game—" Bailey Gongjin made a gesture as he smiled wryly and said, "You've studied it for half a month, but it has been half a year for me. This incomplete Go game is created by Martial Sovereign Throne, Tengguang, and is called the Game of Heaven and Earth. It contains his ultimate insight into the Tao of Arrays. Anyone who knows how to solve it can inherit his 800 scrolls of the Tao of Arrays and become a master of arrays. As the family head of one of the 4 major aristocratic families in Firecrow Empire, Cheng Feng was a deep man who rarely showed his true emotions. Even so, he was visibly shocked when he heard that, and he sucked in a cold breath with a terrified look on his face. "Do you mean the Grandmaster of Go, Martial Sovereign Tengguang, who was given the title of Throne by the Holy Realm and is ranked 7th on the Heaven and Earth power chart?" Bailey Gongjin chuckled and nodded. Chung Feng glanced at the game in horror and asked doubtfully, "From where did Master Bailey get such a precious treasure?" Bailey Gongjin laughed when he saw the nervous look on Chung Feng's face. "Don't be so cautious, Brother Chung. This is already known to everyone in the Holy Realm, and there are at least thousands, if not tens of thousands of people studying it now. I haven't heard of anyone who could gain insight into the Tao of Arrays in it, though. Still, many people have comprehended higher-level martial essence from it, which improved their cultivation base significantly. It's a pity that I am not an expert in martial arts, so I can't gain anything out of it. You are much stronger than me, Brother Chung, and I think perhaps you can learn something if you put in more effort to study the game." Chung Feng was somewhat surprised. With a wry smile, he said, "It gave me a fright. If this game had only one copy, the Chung family would be pushed to the teeth of the storm and be wiped out at any time. As the saying went, a man's wealth was his own ruin by attracting others' greed. The Chung family was powerful in Firecrow Empire, but it was merely an ant in the whole heavenly martial continent. Such an amazing treasure was not something they could have laid a hand on." "Ha ha!" Bailey Gongjin laughed. "If this were the only copy, I would have been killed and my body would have been thrown somewhere unknown. This martial sovereign throne wanted to take in disciples, but none of those who went to him was gifted enough, which is why he had come out with this idea. Anyone who can fully understand the mystery in the game can become his disciple and inherit his Tao of Arrays. In my opinion, even if we can't fully solve it, we will still benefit a lot by learning just a part of it." Chung Feng was slightly amazed, but then he said in a somewhat disappointed voice, "I don't think I can fully solve it when all the other geniuses on the continent have failed to do so." Bailey Gongjin smiled and said, "It's not easy indeed, but sometimes it's all about a fated chance. Perhaps someone in the Chung family is fated to solve it. If so, your family will be able to move up another level and no longer have to stay in a small empire in the south." That tempted Chung Feng. If anyone of his family could inherit Martial Sovereign Throne's legacy, then no one in all three empires south of the continent would be his match, and he could even trample the Juqian sect. At that moment, he decided to call upon all the family members later and give each a copy of the game to study. "It occurred to me that someone might try it," Bailey Gongjin said suddenly. "Who?" "We all know that Lord Yangdi had left behind a painting in Tianshui and said that he would do anything for the person who could solve its mystery. Both you and I had seen that painting, and we couldn't find anything out of it. But, some time ago, a young man in Tianshui solved the mystery. It proves that he has a very high level of comprehension, so we can make him try." A look of displeasure flashed across Chung Feng's face. He snorted coldly and said, "I've heard that too. And the fool had given the amazing gift to the Wang family to save the princess of Tianshui." He ground his teeth as a glimmer of disdain flickered in his eyes. "That fool was just lucky to have guessed the answer. It is said that the answer is a hidden poem Gu Feiyang wrote to scold Yang Di. Luck is also part of strength, and Yuan Hao has a very high opinion about the young man," said Bailey Gongjin noncommittally. "You might want to find him and make him try, Brother Chung." "Humph. I've already planned to send someone to find this guy even before this." Chung Feng's eyes flickered as he said, "He is now the city lord of Yanwu, and his name is Li Yunxiao. In the last 1,000 Treasures trade fair, he had killed a junior member of my family and Xianxia, the heir of his family. I thought the Xingyang family would finish him, so I didn't pay him any mind. Little did I expect that the Xingyang family would be struck with such a catastrophic disaster." Bailey Gongjin's eyelids twitched suddenly as an absurd thought came to him. "Brother, do you think what happened to the Xingyang family is related to Yanwu or Li Yunxiao?" Chung Feng paused a moment before bursting into laughter. "Ha ha! You are too imaginative, Master Bailey. Yes, there is an unresolvable feud between them, but Yanwu is just a small city of Tianshui, while the Xingyang family is so strong that it cannot be annihilated even with the strength of the whole Tianshui. Besides, you have seen the ice sculpture, and you know that even a martial emperor of the Seven Constellations realm would not be able to escape that power." Bailey Gongjin nodded slightly in agreement. "There is something very strange about this incident. Everyone agrees that the Supreme Palace did it. It was said that Xingyang Ming had robbed the Supreme Palace's treasury during Ma Feibai's banquet and killed many people before fleeing, and more than a dozen people had seen it with their eyes. They said it was an act of revenge, which I find reasonable. It's just that I didn't expect the Supreme Palace to have such a mighty power that could wipe out the Xingyang family in a flash. Cheng Feng's face grew serious as he said worriedly, "The Supreme Palace has only been established for a little over 100 years, and its palace master Ma Tianhe is only a 3-stars martial grandmaster. Had it not been because of its mysterious origin, which seems to be related to some super sect in the north, it would have been wiped out by the others. But now it seems that this is not the case at all. Their real strength is far above what they have shown us. I even begin to wonder if they are deliberately sent here by the sect in the north." Bailey Gongjin's face grew serious as well, and he said in a deep voice, "I remember when Supreme Palace was just established, the Imperial Temple of Revered Elders had sent someone to the north to investigate, but to no avail. The only valuable piece of information was that Supreme Palace and Baiming Dark Palace in the north seemed to be inextricably linked. In the beginning, everybody thought Baiming Dark Palace was eyeing Mount Meru. However, they did not make any move for the 100 years that followed, and therefore the various major powers in Firecrow Empire allowed it to develop further." "That's right," said Cheng Feng. "Baiming Dark Palace is one of the few superpowers on the continent, so who dares to touch Supreme Palace? But they are showing their tails now. I just don't understand why the Xingyang family would want to steal from their treasury. Such an act is intolerable by any power. That sly old fox Xingyang had been in charge of his family for over 30 years, and I knew him quite well. He was not a fool who would do that. I'm sure there must be something we don't know. It is no longer important whether there is a secret." Bailey Gongjin sighed. "The Xingyang family is completely gone, and Xingyang Hua is the last man of the family. I reckon he will attack Supreme Palace as soon as he learns about what happened to his family. That's good, for we can take the opportunity to find out Supreme Palace's strength. Xingyang Hua is already a peak 9-stars martial grandmaster, isn't he?" Cheng Feng said coldly, "Mount Meru is about to open, and various powers are stirring. I fear the incident of the Xingyang family is not as simple as we thought. But everything will be clear in a few months." Bailey Gongjin looked thoughtful. With his eyebrows frowned tightly, he said, "I suddenly feel that Yenwu's inexplicable rise is not so simple. They had not only offended the Xingyang family, Cheng family, and Zhou family, but also had ties with the Wang family. I heard they even fought against the crown prince during the auction. TSK, the Zhou family lost their cauldron of 5 elements after the auction. Do you think Yenwu is the one who took it? In this chaotic situation, the only way to protect oneself is to plan before action." Cheng Feng sneered. "By standing in the center of the storm, Yenwu is either a group of fools or a pawn pushed to the front by some major power to observe the tide. As the most prosperous city of Tianshui, it is no doubt the best choice for that." Bailey Gongjin said softly, "It's said that Myriad Treasure Store is the power behind Yenwu." Cheng Feng was silent. He pondered for a long time, and only then did he say, "I've asked Myriad Treasure Store about this, and the answer they gave me is negative. But at this juncture, I don't know if they are telling the truth. In any case, both Baiming Dark Palace and Myriad Treasure Store are existences we can't afford to offend, so we can only wait and see." After talking for a while more, they turned their attention back to the game of heaven and earth. At the same time, a group of senior members of the Zhou family was also discussing and analyzing the destruction of the Xingyang family. The family head, Zhou Yangbiao, said softly, "It is a herald of chaos that such a serious incident happened at this time. Supreme Palace is not necessarily the culprit, and it might be the power behind them. We must not get involved in the storm. Mount Meru is nothing when compared to Yushan, and we can't let anything happen to him at this critical moment." One of the elders, Zhou Chu, frowned and said, "But our men are still trying to find out who robbed the cauldron of 5 elements from us. It is said that someone saw the city lord of Yenwu use it, but that has not been confirmed. Do we need to send someone to verify this?" Zhou Yangbiao's face grew cold as he said, This city lord of Yanwu, Li Yunxiao, is the same person who has a bet with Yushan. Yes, he does have the motive to rob the cauldron, but he doesn't have the strength. I suspect he is a puppet pushed forward by some major power. Everything from the bet with Yushan to the robbery of the cauldron was premeditated, and the purpose is to lure us into action so they can do what they want. Another elder, Zhou Xing, said with shock, "Who are they? How dare they openly provoke us?" Zhou Yangbiao said coldly, "I don't know who they are yet, but this Li Yunxiao had not only offended us, but also killed Cheng Fish from the Cheng family and Xingyang Jie from the Xingyang family. Putting aside the fact whether he had the strength to do so, just the courage alone is not something that an ordinary city lord could have. There must certainly be someone behind him. Could it be that Li Yunxiao was also involved in the destruction of the Xingyang family?" said Zhou Chu, aghast. Zhou Yangbiao frowned as he pondered for a moment and said, "It's hard to say. Supreme Palace is more likely the one who did that, but we can't rule out the involvement of Li Yunxiao either. Maybe the two of them were working together. There are also rumors that Myriad Treasure Store is behind Yanwu, but I don't think that's likely. As the #1 trading company on the continent, Myriad Treasure Store's power is not weaker than any of the superpowers. However, they never took part in any disputes, and they would never cultivate such a pawn force." Zhou Chu's face was dark as he said angrily, "What annoyed me the most is that this Li Yunxiao managed to solve the mystery of the painting left behind by Yang Di, but in the end, he gave the reward to the Wang family for the sake of a girl. It is like Yushan delivered a great gift right to the doorstep of the Wang family. Why don't we just make that girl Yushan's concubine now?" By doing so, the Wang family would have failed to fulfill what they had promised Li Yunxiao, and they would not get the reward promised by Yang Di. "No!" Zhou Yangbiao narrowed his eyes and said in a cold voice, "At least half of Wang family's experts are hanging around us every day, and hundreds of divine senses are sweeping back and forth through our mansion in every moment. They know everything about us, and by watching us so openly, it proves that they are determined to fulfill their promise. If we do anything to Qin Ruxue, I'm sure they will rush in to save her in the next moment. Yushan is cultivating in seclusion now, and it is a sensitive time whence we can't afford for anything to go wrong." "That's right. And the Wang family is only responsible for protecting the girl for 3 months. After that, we will drag her out and play as we please. Let's see what that Li Yunxiao can do to us then." Zhou Xing sneered. "But what should we do about the cauldron of 5 elements? If we continue the investigation, we might drag ourselves into troubled waters. But if we stop, what about Yushan?" Zhou Yangbiao drummed his fingers on the table and said calmly, "I found 2 cultivation vessels for him, so the cauldron of 5 elements is no longer vital." That startled everyone and filled their hearts with chills. What he meant was he had found 2 experts to forcibly transfer their primordial qi to Yushan. In that way, Yushan could gain a significant improvement in a short time. However, the strength obtained through such a method was not only limited, but a large part of it was hollow, and how much he could get in the end depended entirely on himself. For someone poorly gifted, even if the method pushed him up 1 major realm, he might end up with an improvement of less than a star after stabilizing his cultivation base. Moreover, the cultivation base of the vessels must be at least 2 realms higher than the receiver, and the vessels would become cripples, with their primordial qi completely gone after that. Zhou Yushan was a martial lord, so only martial grandmasters or above could be his cultivation vessels. And after they gave him their primordial qi, they would be crippled completely, no matter how much his strength had improved. In the southern region of Heavenly Martial Continent, a martial grandmaster could already establish his own sect and rule a land, and yet 2 experts of such level were wasted just to improve the strength of a junior. Only the 4 major aristocratic families had the reserves to do this. No one could tell anything from Zhou Yangbiao's face, but they guessed he did not feel any pain over the great cost. After all, it was to improve the strength of his son, and he was most likely overjoyed in his heart. "Still, we can't just drop the matter, but we can't be trapped in it either," he said in a flat tone. "I think we will send 2 elders to investigate, one to Yanwu and the other to Supreme Palace. Remember, you must not attack them, and report back immediately if there is any news." The opening of Mount Meru this time may be riskier than any previous one. Apart from great strength, the reason why our family could survive for thousands of years was caution. We will rather miss a good opportunity than take the wrong step. Zhou Chu, Zhou Xing, I will have to trouble you this time. Understood, my lord. Both men stood up hurriedly and answered. Zhou Yongbiao waved, and the two elders took their leave under the complicated glances of the others, heading toward Yanwu and Supreme Palace respectively. Yunxiao drove the chariot in the direction of Supreme Palace and made a large round before stealthily returning to Yanwu. Although we fooled that old man, I wonder if we can deceive those aristocratic families. Xiao Qingwang said worriedly. Also, the Xingyang family has a patriarch who is an elder in Jutian sect, and his cultivation base is unfathomable. We will be in huge trouble if he found out that we are the culprits. Yun Xiao said calmly, even if we can deceive them, it is only temporary. If it weren't for Uncle Chen's death, I wouldn't have attacked the Xingyang family so early. You don't have to be too worried though. The most important thing for us now is to improve our strength. The destruction of the Xingyang family will at least slightly deter those aristocratic families who think they are so noble, and no one would harbor any ill intention against Yanwu for the time being. We need to take this period to improve everyone's cultivation base. Afterward, everyone was brought into the Divine Realm tablet. The newly recruited warriors were completely stunned. The disciples of Diana sect, who had their own base, were awestruck when they were brought into the boundless independent space with primordial chi several times richer than the outside world. Meanwhile, the members of Dubhe, who were also the students of Jelon Academy, had never seen such an amazing place before, and each of them glanced around blankly like idiots. Nung Feichen said excitedly, no wonder Yanwu could become so strong in such a short time. It turns out you have such an amazing thing, an independent space with spirituality. Young Master Yun, this mystic artifact must be of high level, right? Yun Xiao smiled and nodded. Sect leader Nung, are you satisfied with what I've promised you? Nung Feichen laughed and said, satisfied? I could not be more satisfied. With this mystic artifact and the primordial chi endlessly supplied by the 9 Dragons energy absorbing array, the treatment is much better than what you'd promised. I believe that with these resources, Yanwu will become a superpower in Firecrow Empire sooner or later. Yun Xiao chuckled and did not comment on that. Firecrow Empire was nothing to him, if truth be told. He waved a hand, sending a gust of breeze to wake the several thousand warriors from their shock. From today on, you will cultivate in this pill pagoda. I've prepared 4 regions with 10-fold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold, and 10,000-fold gravitational force for warriors of the original realm, 2 forces realm, 3 powers realm, and 4 quadrants realm respectively. In the region for martial lords, what awaits you is not only a 10,000-fold gravitational force, but also a surprise. Thousands of warriors all gasped at the same time. A 10-fold gravitational force was just right for warriors, and 100-fold was already a very heavy burden for martial masters. 1,000-fold was almost like an extreme torture for even great martial masters, while for a martial lord to cultivate under 10,000-fold gravitational force was almost like killing him. Moreover, there was even a surprise. The members of Dubhe who had tasted the surprise all trembled when they heard that. Yun Xiao saw everyone's expression, and he said in a loud voice, walking down the path of martial arts is like sailing against the currents. Why is it harder to break through as you get to the higher level? It is not because the difficulty has increased, but your training cannot keep up, he sneered. You are a great martial master, but you still train under 100-fold gravitational force. You are a martial lord, but you still train under 1,000-fold gravitational force. And you still want to break through? Are you not ashamed of yourself? Let me be honest with you, the reason you can't break through your current realm is that you can't break through your own limits. It is not because of lack or resources or talent, but entirely because you lack courage, determination, and perseverance. The people present were all tough warriors with certain success in martial arts, not some ignorant newbies. Yun Xiao's words immediately removed their dullness of perception like an epiphany. He's right. The reason I can't break through is that I don't have enough pressure. If I train under 100-fold or even 1,000-fold gravitational force, I will be forced to break through even if I don't want to. It looks like I've not suffered enough. Xianxia went on, his voice as cold as ice. I've once said that if you follow me, I'll provide an endless supply of cultivation resources for you. In this pill pagoda, as long as you are willing to put in the effort, you will have medicinal pills, primordial stones, mystic weapons, and martial techniques. Before training, each of you can claim medicinal pills and primordial stones required for you to break through to the next realm. I'll not impose any limit. You can claim as many as you want, and I don't care if you want to take them as your daily meals. But there's one thing you need to remember. Medicinal pills are only supplements, and you can't rely on them entirely. Also, all the resources in the pill pagoda are provided only for your training. If anyone dares to bring them out, I will kill him without question. That caused a sudden commotion to break out among the warriors while Xiao Qingwang and the others were so shocked that they were left speechless. It was impossible for any other power on the continent to let its people claim as many medicinal pills and primordial stones as they wanted. It meant that they no longer had to worry about cultivation resources, and they could focus all their energy on training. The members of Merak were the most deeply touched. They were all lone warriors before this, and what they lacked the most were cultivation resources. It was very common for them to fight to the death just for a medicinal pill or half a piece of primordial stone. Therefore, when they heard they would be provided with an endless supply of cultivation resources, they felt like they were dreaming, and they all looked at each other in disbelief. Neng Feichen was completely struck dumb as well. If Diana sect could be so rich, it would not have stayed in Mount Qiun for thousands of years and depended on others for a living. Even Qian Duoduo was speechless, with his mouth left hanging open. He was born in a superpower, and he had seen all kinds of resources. Apart from those 9th-tier medicinal pills, there was nothing that could surprise him. But now he was completely shocked by Yunxiao's generous offer. It was such a heaven-defying offer. Yunxiao looked at everyone's dumbfounded expression with satisfaction. That was exactly the effect he wanted. It was only after getting the resources and primordial stones from Tianyuan Trading Company and Myriad Treasure Store, taking away part of the Saving Diana sect had accumulated for thousands of years, robbing everything from Supreme Palace's treasury, and most importantly, with the full support of Zhang Qingfan and dozens of alchemists, that Yunxiao could activate the training mode with an unlimited supply. Even so, he also knew that it would not last long. Otherwise, Yanwu would soon become one of the top powers on the heavenly martial continent, not to mention the #1 power in Firecrow Empire. The reason why those superpowers on the continent were so fearful was that in addition to their great fighting strength, they had resources that they had accumulated for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. If they wanted, they could double or even multiply the strength of their sects in a short period. The immeasurable resource advantage was even more frightening than the apparent fighting strength. And the reason why the Sea of Soul formation could become an existence beyond the Holy Realm was that it brought together the best alchemists in the whole continent, who constantly created all kinds of top resources that attracted the strongest warriors to trade there. The cultivation of warriors mainly depended on innate talents and fated chances, but the existence and continuation of those superpowers depended entirely on the accumulation of various resources. It was only when a sect was in a crisis that it would resort to the method of providing unlimited cultivation resources like Yunxiao did just now, and what he did now was a prelude to the rapid rise of Yanwu in the short term. Li Chunyang said worriedly, "The consumption is so tremendous that I don't think we can last for too long. What should we do if we run out of resources?" He was a seasoned general, so he naturally knew the importance of wealth. Resources were what war was all about after all. Yunxiao chuckled and said, "Where do you think our resources came from? We borrowed, we robbed. When we are stronger, we will borrow and rob again." His words sent everyone into a stupor. Looking at the unimpressed expression on the faces around him, Yunxiao said coldly, "Do you think I'm just talking nonsense? Tell me then, which of the major powers did not rob the rivers and mountains they have occupied? Are those rivers and mountains distributed according to needs? No. It is all about natural selection, and only the fittest can survive." Everyone fell silent immediately. Although what Yunxiao said sounded exaggerated, it was the fact. and they knew it. Why could those major powers enjoy various natural resources while they had to risk their lives everywhere just to earn a living? So work hard, each one of you. Resources are fixed, and the more you consume, the more you will get. For those who fail to make progress, I'm sorry, but Yenwu doesn't keep cripples. After saying that, Yunxiao vanished directly from where he stood and came to the cavern beneath Mount Inch. The following tasks were handed over to Neng Feichen and Hong Bing. Everything was arranged properly, and they just had to follow the plan. As for Dubhe, it was originally under the command of Chen Dashing, and after he died, Yunxiao intended to let Luo Yunshang take over the command. But she rejected that offer, so he gave it to Yan. Meng Wu was still lying quietly in the array of life. Life force was rushing endlessly into her body, and it looked as if she were asleep, serene and quiet, but she would never wake up. After examining her with divine sense, Yunxiao sighed and murmured to himself, "The soul-nourishing wood is produced by Kunwu divine tree through gathering a large amount of life force and energy essence in the 4 seas. It is a precious treasure of the Sea clan, and only the 4 imperial families and the Bo family have some in their reserves. Asking is certainly useless, unless I can restore the peak strength of my previous life and rob it from them." His eyes gleamed fiercely, but they dimmed down in the next instant. Even he had no idea when he could restore the peak strength of his previous life, and Meng Wu might not make it to that day. Yunxiao felt a stab of pain in his heart as he looked at her young, delicate face, which was gentle and graceful under the blanket of blue primordial chi with a hint of a smile. He turned away and dared not to look at her again. Dark Thunder was still sleeping outside the array. It had not woken up since taking the 9 orifices pill, but the demonic aura emanating with its breaths was growing stronger. Yunxiao patted its forehead and said softly, "Whether you can break through this barrier depends on your luck." There was a strict lineage in the world of demon beasts. For example, Dark Thunder was a 5th-tier demon beast, and it would stay as a 5th-tier demon beast its whole life. At most, it could climb up to the peak of the 5th tier, and it was all due to the bloodline. Although demon beasts were powerful, they lacked the hope to advance to higher levels when compared to human beings. But there were some special cases, such as taking rare herbs or having some mutations, which allowed demon beasts to break through the restriction of bloodline and reach higher levels. But these cases were extremely rare. Dark Thunder's current aura was stuck right at the peak of the 5th tier, and as it breathed, it was slowly accumulating power, as if about to break through at any time. What is this smell? Yunxiao lifted his head suddenly. His eyes flashed with a shocked look. With a blink, he disappeared from beside Dark Thunder instantly and reached somewhere deep in the cavern. Wisps of green aura drifted out of a hollow about the size of a room, which was slowly corroding and dissolving the surrounding walls, causing them to produce a nasty smell. Fuck! I can't believe this boy ate the whole poisonous egg in one go. Yunxiao cursed and made primordial chi hover around him to form a barrier, then walked into the hollow. Meng Bai had turned green all over and was sitting cross-legged in the center. Covered with tiny blisters, his skin began to rot, and foul-smelling green fluid was seeping out from the parts that had festered. Beside him lay a broken eggshell, and its contents were all gone. Not bad. Eating raw is more nutritious. The purpose of the poisonous ferret is to trigger the natural toxicity in you, but judging from what I see, it is going to take a very long time. Well, let me go and find you a stronger catalyst. While frowning, Yunxiao paced back and forth in the cavern. After pondering for a moment, he left the Divine Realm tablet and headed toward Firecrow Empire alone. Within tens of thousands of miles around Yenwu, the best place to provide materials was naturally the place where the strongest alchemists of the empire gathered, the Alchemist Association of the Firecrow Empire. After the incident of the Xingyang family, the atmosphere in Firecrow Empire became tense and strange. Yunxiao completely restrained his divine sense and pretended to be a young master on a journey as he entered the city along with common people. People were coming and going in the city, and it looked peaceful. He saw an old man selling sweet potatoes, a young master toying with his pet bird, an old man and his granddaughter busking in the tea house, and a lazy beggar. Everything seemed so peaceful and normal, but it was too normal. Xiangyang City was a gathering place of all the warriors in Firecrow Empire. However, Xiao could not found even a single warrior on the streets. All he saw were common people. Moreover, countless divine senses were sweeping back and forth over the city, watching everyone's movements. The whole imperial city seemed to have entered a state of high tension. Various powers reduced their activities to the minimum, but carried out intelligence work at full capacity. Xiao sneered disdainfully. He had restrained his divine sense, and even though there was some people in the Firecrow Empire who could see through him, they were not among these people who were sent out to monitor the people. So, he swaggered directly toward the Alchemist Association like a rich young master who was going to ask for medicinal pills or mystic weapons. The Firecrow's Alchemist Association was a third-grade branch, and it was presided over by a sixth-tier alchemy grandmaster. Its strength was far beyond that of the branch in Tianshui. A third-tier alchemist was already a mighty figure in Tianshui's Alchemist Association, but the same alchemist would be a nobody here. There was not a warrior on the streets, and even the front door of the Alchemist Association was almost deserted, with one or two visitors coming and going occasionally. Puzzled, Xiao walked in, and was immediately shocked by how quiet it was. If he had not seen a beautiful and sexy girl writing something at the front desk, he would have thought he had entered a haunted mansion. A quick glance at the great hall beside him made him understand what had happened. It was packed with people, but not a sound could be heard. Everyone was staring attentively at a glowing white array disc. A green sword embryo floated over the disc, which was being refined. Shoo! The beautiful girl hastily pulled Xiao to the side and whispered into his ear. Master Bai Qianjin had just advanced to the third tier, and he is giving a lecture. What can I do for you? It was the tradition of the Alchemist Association. Whenever an alchemist advanced to the next tier, he or she would give a lecture, telling everyone his or her insight of the alchemy and the experience of breaking through. When Luo Yunshang brought Xiao to find a master, they had run into one such lecture, which was given by Jia Rong. Xiao felt the girl's lips almost touching his ear, and her breath was sweet. He smiled and said, "Pretty girl, may I know your name?" "Don't be so rude." The girl scolded, but she did not look angry at all as she studied Xiao. In her line of work, a pair of sharp eyes was the most important asset. With just one glance, she judged him to be a young master from some lesser aristocratic family, who was here to ask for medicinal pills or mystic weapons. "Young master, are you here to buy medicinal pills or mystic weapons? Please fill in a form here. Make sure you state clearly your requirements and the remuneration you are willing to pay. I will paste it up a moment later and see if anyone wants to take it." The girl pulled out a form from the front desk and placed it in front of Xiao. Xiao chuckled as he picked up a pen and began to write on the paper. Very quickly, he handed the paper to the girl. She glanced at it, and then said in surprise, "The poisonous blood of a demon beast above the fourth tier? The price will be negotiated face to face." She studied Xiao once again. While frowning, she said dubiously, "So, you are here to look for materials. This is a rare thing, and only by luck can you find some. Moreover, it is very expensive. If you don't put any price here, I fear it will be very difficult for you to get it." Xiao frowned as well. In a place like Firecrow Empire, demon beasts above the fourth tier were rare, not to mention one with poisonous blood. It was indeed very difficult to find it. He actually wanted to see the president, because only the higher-ups of the association would know about such a rare material. "Wait, this smell?" Xiao sniffed, then looked doubtfully into the great hall. He sensed a faint fluctuation spreading out, and he immediately caught the frequency. Astounded, he said, "It is almost taking shape. What a pity! What did you say?" The girl paused and followed Xiao's gaze. The hall was still quiet, and everyone was watching nervously as Bai Qianjin refined the sword. There was nothing unusual. "Ah, it's nothing. Go further away later, lest the explosion there injures you. I'll have a look inside." When he had finished, he turned and walked toward the hall. He rested his eyes on the little green sword in front while an amused smile brushed his lips. The girl stared blankly at his back and was a little confused by what he said. Could he be a madman? But he doesn't look like one, she thought to herself. After pasting Yunxiao's form, she returned to the front desk and continued her work. As for what Yunxiao told her, she did not put it to heart. He had just advanced to the 3rd tier, and now he is already forcing himself to refine a 3rd-tier mystic weapon. The courage is laudable, but it's a pity that the strength is lacking. Yunxiao folded his arms over his chest as he stood behind the crowd and said in a soft voice while shaking his head. His voice was not loud, but it was heard by many people. Stunned, they all turned back, but when they saw he was just a green boy, they gave him disgusted and angry looks. Then, they flicked their sleeves and turned back to continue watching. Boy, how do you know he lacks the strength? I can see his refinement is going well, and the sword is almost taking shape. A playful voice rang out from his side. Don't utter nonsense when you don't have the ability, or it will bring you trouble. Yunxiao turned around. At the back of the hall, an old man leaned against the wall lazily, watching the refinement at the front while picking his nose with a finger. What he heard just now was sent into his ear by this old man with a voice transmission. After all, everyone was watching the refinement attentively, and talking loudly would only attract glares and angry stares, just like what happened to him just now. When Yunxiao's gaze fell on the old man, his pupils constricted, but they quickly returned to normal. Then, he sent a voice transmission over, "Why don't we make a bet?" A bet. The old man's eyes lit up, as if his interest were aroused. He pulled his finger out of his nostril as he smiled and asked, "What's the bet?" Meanwhile, he was slightly suspicious inside and thought, "This boy's eyes seem to be flickering when he first saw me. Is it because he can sense my strength? No, that's impossible. I think too much. If you lose, you will run errands for me for a year. If I lose, I will run errands for you for a year as well," Yunxiao said calmly. Run errands for you for a year? The old man's body straightened up immediately. He frowned and sunk in thought, wordless. Could he really have discovered my strength? But how's that possible? He waved his hand repeatedly and said with a voice transmission, No, although I don't think I will lose, accidents do happen. My old bones will fall apart if I were to run errands for you for a year. There was a look of disdain in Yunxiao's eyes as he sneered. Are you scared? Well, tell me what you want to bet then. I will accept it no matter what it is. The old man looked at his confident face, then turned to look suspiciously at Bai Qianjin, who was refining at the front. The alchemist was pale and covered with sweat, but his movement was calm and did not look like he was going to have a problem. Scared? Ha! Let's bet then that the loser will run errands for the winner for a year. But would your parents come to me if you lose the bet? He saw that Yunxiao was only 15 years old but already had the cultivation base of a great martial master, which meant that he must not be the son of some common family, and was definitely supported by a decent sect. Yunxiao grinned and his face lit up instantly, as if he had found a great bargain. Even if my family comes to you, why should you be afraid? You are a 7 stars martial grandmaster. You! The old man trembled, and his eyes went wide in horror. He had used a mystic art on himself, which prevented common people from sensing his cultivation base. Even those with extremely strong divine sense could at most sense his cultivation base of a martial master or a great martial master. However, this 15-year-old boy managed to tell his strength of a 7 stars martial grandmaster at a glance. Who exactly are you, boy? The old man could not bear it anymore and asked in a deep voice. Looking at Yunxiao's cocksure face, he suddenly had a very bad feeling. Ha ha! Take it easy, old man. I'm not a bad guy. Yunxiao was in a good mood. Just like that, he had found himself another 7 stars martial grandmaster. It was a great help to Yanwu, which was on the teeth of a storm now. The old man said angrily, Don't celebrate too early. It is not certain yet who will win or lose. Although he said those words, the confidence in his heart began to gradually melt under the smile on the corner of Yunxiao's lips, especially when he saw Bai Qianjin's face grow uglier and uglier. Finally, buzz, buzz. After Bai Qianjin sent another incantation seal into the small green sword, it suddenly became extremely violent and produced a buzzing noise, which made everyone's head reel and ear ring. The old man's face turned extremely unsightly in an instant. Even he, a layman of alchemy, could sense that the aura emanated from the sword was extremely unstable and violent. Terrified, the faces of all the alchemists and apprentices fell. It was the prelude of an artifact explosion. Many of them had experienced it before, but they were all the explosions of common mystic weapons, so the damage was limited. But now it was a third-tier mystic weapon, and that too in such a confined space. If it were to explode, the consequences would be beyond imagination. Some alchemists at the back of the hall turned their heads in shock, staring at Xianxia, who was calm and with a smile on his face. Their heads were filled with questions, wondering how this young man knew it was going to explode, and how did he know it so early. Don't panic, Brother Qianjin. Continue the refinement. As long as it takes shape, you can suppress the violent power. I will give you a hand. A middle-aged man jumped out of the crowd. Soul power surged from him as he sent out a few incantation seals, stabilizing the little green sword in an instant. It spun constantly over the array disk, and the buzzing noise came under control as well. Everyone breathed a heavy sigh of relief. But then, their eyes gleamed. Saving a violent mystic weapon during the refining process was even rarer, and they all widened their eyes to watch, fearing they might miss anything. Bai Qinjin's face lit up, and he exclaimed, "I'm sure everything will be fine with Brother Xianghua's help." With a modest smile, Xianxia said, "You're flattering me, Brother Qianjin. Now is not the time to chat. Although I've forcibly suppressed the sword with my soul power, it doesn't show any sign of relief. Let's use the transformation technique together to stabilize the violent power in it. Only then we can try to fix its shape." "All right," Bai Qianjin answered in a deep voice. Seeming to have recovered some strength, he began to use the transformation technique. Both men performed almost identical incantation gestures, sending various complex hand seals into the sword over the array, as if they were trying to forcibly refine and fix its shape. The old man breathed a long sigh of relief when he saw that. He gave Xianxia a triumphant look as he laughed and said, "Ha ha! What a plot twist! Ha ha! A plot twist!" Xianxia smiled mockingly. In fact, its violent power can be negated with just a few simple hand seals, and then the refinement can be continued. However, that fool forcibly suppressed the sword with his soul power, and now they even joined hands to use the transformation technique. In 10 breaths, the mystic weapon will explode with several times more violent power than just now. Xianxia's cocksure face and his confident voice gave the old man a pause and turned his face serious again. Although he was somewhat doubtful of that, he was already deeply convinced by the strength of Xianxia's divine sense and judgment. Feeling anxious, he turned to look at the front of the hall and began to pray in his heart, hoping that the other was wrong. Xianxia had said that openly without using a voice transmission, and his words immediately turned all heads around and attracted all kinds of disdainful snorts and angry curses. However, those alchemists who had heard him previously were anxious and doubtful. 1. Paying no mind to the angry curses and gazes, he clasped his hands behind his back and stared coldly at the small sword as he began counting leisurely. 2, 3, 4. His unbridled counting immediately provoked general rage. A second-tier alchemist stood up and pointed at him while snapping, "Who are you, boy? How could you make a groundless comment about the refinement of a third-tier alchemist? Who are the seniors of your family?" The old man looked at Xianxia. He too wanted to know who were the seniors of this boy's family. But Xianxia paid them no heed, and just continued to count as if there were no other people around. 5. His behavior immediately angered the crowd, and many stood up to scold him. "Whose son is this? Throw him out of here now." "Throw him out? I think we better keep him in captivity and wait for his senior to come and ransom him." "Yes, let me do it. I'll keep him in my house." "Brother Shiman, I don't think that's a good idea. You're known for molesting boys." "Brother Shangguan, what you said is incorrect. I'm just romantic, but not obscene." Xianxia turned a deaf ear to that. 6. Even as his voice faded, Bai Qianjin and Zhang Hua's faces fell at the same time, as if they had found something incredible, and their eyes were full of shock. How? Why is this happening? For a moment, Zhang Hua was struck dumb, and he stared blankly at the little green sword. A violent aura gradually emanated on the mystic weapon, growing stronger and stronger, and the suppression of their soul power was rendered completely useless. Arrest him. Arrest this boy who spread fallacies to deceive people. The alchemist, who was called Shangguan, looked excited as he licked his lips and rushed out of the crowd toward Yunxiao. 7. A hint of a smile appeared on the corner of Yunxiao's lips. Everything was under his control. The old man was startled. When he saw the changes in Zhang Hua and Bai Qianjin's expressions, he knew he was losing the bet. He turned to look at Yunxiao in shock, with a storm raging in his heart. At the front of the hall were 2 third-tier alchemists, and yet they had failed to suppress a third-tier sword embryo together. And how did Yunxiao find out about that so early? Just when Shangguan rushed in front of Yunxiao, Zhang Hua suddenly roared. His voice was so loud that it shook everyone and almost threw them off their feet. Run! The sword embryo is about to explode! What? The crowd was stunned, and everyone gave Yunxiao a horrified look. A dead silence fell over the hall for a brief moment, and then the people began to rush crazily toward the exit, pushing and stepping over others. Curses and shrieks could be heard coming from all over the place. Everyone stops and lets second-tier alchemists leave first. First, my ass. If you push me one more time, I'll turn you into a cripple here and now. Get out of my way. As Shangguan was at the foremost, he was pushed to the ground by the people rushing up from behind. Countless feet stamped across his body, and he screamed a few times before going silent completely. No one knew if he were still alive or not. 8. Yunxiao announced softly. Then, he turned to look at the old man, whose face was ashen, as he smiled and said, "How's that? Are you convinced now?" Sensing the energy fluctuation coming from the sword and looking at Bai Qianjin and Zhang Hua's panicked expressions, the old man knew they were unable to save the situation anymore. With a dejected look, he sighed and said, "How did you know it was going to explode? It's good that you admit defeat." Yunxiao chuckled, then pushed through the crowd and walked toward the front. There are still 2 breaths left, and the sword can actually be saved. His faint voice rang out. Zhang Hua was trying his best to control the violent sword, buying more time for the people to run for their lives. When he saw Yunxiao walk over calmly, he cried out in shock, "You should not be here. I don't know how you found out it is going to explode, but the structure of the sword embryo is completely damaged now, and we can't do anything to save the situation. The explosion of a third-tier mystic weapon will kill you. Go now." Yunxiao gave them an approving look and said, "Facing danger fearlessly and buying time for the others with your own lives, although your skill in alchemy is not so good, you do have an excellent moral quality." Under Zhang Hua and Bai Qianjin's stunned gazes, Yunxiao lightly slapped the array disc, causing a beam of light to rise from it and envelop the green sword embryo. Both men gaped. Then Zhang Hua glared at him and bellowed, "Stop it! Do you know what you're doing?" What shocked them even more was that the soul power they used to suppress the sword embryo was pushed back by another soul power. "This is insane." "You'll..." Zhang Hua said furiously, but his voice came to a sudden stop, because to his astonishment, he found that the sword's violent aura seemed to grow gentler. Although it was still extremely wild, the frequency gradually became rhythmic. This is... Both men's eyes grew wide as they stood there and watched with blank faces. Yunxiao was already moving. Standing where he was with both feet rooted to the ground, his upper body blurred into motion, and his hands moved so fast that it shocked everyone. Incantation seals jumped out of his palms without stopping, one after another like the rushing water in a great river, pouring into the air over the array disc and enveloping the little green sword. There was a flash of shock in the old man's eyes as he stared incredulously at Yunxiao's dreamlike movements. They were as fast and swift as lightning and wind, and that kind of complex movement and some of the skillful maneuvers were by no means something ordinary newbies could do. Only a seasoned alchemist with rich experience could perform them so smoothly and casually. 10 breaths have passed, but there is no explosion, thought the old man. Although he could not see the sword embryo, he could sense the energy fluctuation emanating out of it become calm. It was like a pot of boiling water had suddenly become gentle. The old man looked dejected. He did not think that he would lose to a strange boy, but his eyes suddenly lit up, as if he were very excited. Meanwhile, after waiting for a while without hearing the explosion, some of the bolder alchemists put on their battle suits and carefully went back into the hall to find out what happened. The timid ones waited anxiously for them to come out and report, but no one returned. It was like every alchemist who went inside had disappeared. What happened? What the hell is going on inside? Why hasn't it exploded after so long? I thought he said 10 breaths? Why did none of those who went inside come out? Everyone looked at each other. Occasionally, someone summoned up the courage and walked in, but they also never came out again. Could it be that the sword produced a legendary sword spirit and devoured every person who went inside? Devour my ass. It is said that only a mystic weapon beyond the 9th tier can produce an artifact spirit. Tell me then what's going on? How would I know? Oh, right. Xiaofeng. Go inside and have a look. All eyes fell on the beautiful girl who worked at the front desk. She had run out together with everyone just now, and she still could not recover from her shock. When someone pushed her with a hand, she jumped in panic and said, I'm just a girl. It will be very dangerous for me to go in alone. Humph. You are just an ordinary girl, so there will be no danger for you. Do you want us, the noble alchemists, to take the risk? If something bad happened to any one of us, can you bear the responsibility? Brother Shangguan is right. Brother Shangguan, you are still alive. Fuck. Why do you sound like you wished I was dead? I was trampled at least 100 times just now. Who did that to me? Cough. Cough. Let's not talk about that now. We need to know what is going on inside. Xiaofeng, each of us here is at least 10,000 times nobler than you. If you don't go in, who will? Go now and don't waste our time. Yes, there are dozens of us here. If you waste just 1 minute, you will waste at least half an hour of our time. Do you know how precious is half an hour for alchemists? What are you crying about? Don't pretend to be pitiful. Go in quickly. Someone pushed Xiaofeng from behind and forced her into the building. She held her breath in horror, and her face was covered with tears of grievance and fear. She knew she could not afford to offend any of those alchemists, so she chewed her lips and walked carefully toward the Great Hall. Xiaofeng carefully walked toward the Great Hall. From inside came a young voice, which seemed to be talking about something, but she could not understand it at all. Very soon, a scene that stunned her appeared in her eyes. The young man, whose name was Li Yunxiao, was talking with confidence and composure at the front while the group of alchemists, who had come in before her, sat humbly beneath and listened attentively. Even Master Zhang Hua and Master Bai Chenjin sat among them with a thirsty and hungry look on their faces. The little green sword, which was supposed to have exploded, was not only perfectly intact, but seemed to have been completely refined, and was spinning back and forth between Yunxiao's fingers like a pen. Now, is there anything else you don't understand? As Yunxiao said that, his eyes fell on the old man who was smiling wryly. Zhang Hua swallowed hard and asked respectfully, Master, I still don't quite understand why it gave us a reverse effect after we joined hands to suppress the violent aura. It is actually very simple, Yunxiao said as he tossed the sword onto the table like a toy and sat down on a chair, crossing his legs. I'm a little thirsty. Do you have water? Ah, water. Zhang Hua paused a moment. Then he saw Xiaofeng, who was about to go back out and report what she saw to others. Xiaofeng, where are you going? He called out hurriedly. Bring some water for this master. Be quick about it. Are you crawling there? Hurry up. Fuck. You are quite agile normally, but why are you so slow now? Don't let master wait for your water. Why didn't you prepare water in advance? You don't want to work here anymore, do you? The group of alchemists, who were absorbed in the lecture, turned to glare at Xiaofeng and began to scold her. Some of them were so angry that they even shouted at her to dismiss her from the job. Trembling with fear, she took a cup of water and ran over, almost bursting into tears. "Ma master, please have a cup of water." She placed a cup of water before Xianxia as she bowed and prepared to leave. There was a group of alchemists still waiting for her outside, and she could not afford to offend even one of them. "Where are you going?" "Stay here. Perhaps master has other orders for you later." Xianxia frowned and glared at her, as if he were very dissatisfied with her. Xiaofang froze and her face turned glum immediately, but there was nothing she could do or say. So, she lowered her head and stood to the side, not daring to take another step. Xianxia saw everything. With a smile in his eyes, he took a sip of water and his face turned dark as he slapped the table and snapped, "What kind of attitude is this?" That startled Xianxia and the others immediately. No one knew why he flew into rage suddenly, and they all exchanged anxious glances. Xianxia pointed at Xiaofang and said, "I can't believe you all have the heart to scold such a beautiful girl in loud voices and order her to do things like she is a maid, and yet someone even shouted her to be dismissed from her job? I really doubt whether you are alchemists or not. As a qualified alchemist, one must first have a compassionate heart. Do you have it? I can't imagine how you will treat common people when you've treated a beautiful girl so badly. None of you deserve to be an alchemist." "Ah, this..." Everyone was struck dumb. Bai Qianjin was the first to come back to his senses. He quickly waved at Xiaofang and said, "Come and sit here, Xiaofang. We were indeed too harsh on you in the past, master is right. How can an alchemist still be an alchemist when he or she doesn't have a compassionate heart?" He took out a storage bag and held it out as he said kindly, "I don't have any gold coins on me. Take these 100 medial-grade primordial stones first as compensation from the association." "Ah? 100 medial-grade primordial stones." Xiaofang's heart raced. How many gold coins were they worth? She felt her head stop working and she could not do the calculation anymore. Meanwhile, Xianxia said, "Master's words have enlightened me as well. I propose a pay rise for Xiaofang." "Yeah, I just remember. Xiaofang has been working here for years, but she has never received a raise, has she? Heaven! We were too selfish and inhumane in the past. We only thought for ourselves but never cared about the difficulties of others. No wonder we have not made any progress in alchemy for years. It turns out that we lack a compassionate heart." "You're absolutely right. Let us gather signatures and demand the association to give Xiaofang at least a tenfold raise." Tenfold? Over the past few years, the currency has been overissued to an insane extent. I say we need to give her at least a 100-fold raise. "That's right," Xianxia said seriously. "It must be at least a 100-fold raise. We will propose it to the deputy president of the branch after this. If the raise doesn't meet this number, we will put in our own money." "Yes, let's do it." Every alchemist shouted in agreement, as if they suddenly had a great deal of animosity with the association about the salary system of common people. Xiaofang only felt that her mind was completely petrified, causing her to lose her ability to think. She felt as if she were in a dream as she listened to all the concerned words around her. "No, I'm indeed in a dream." Suddenly, all the wrongs she had suffered over the years came back to her. With tears welling up in her big eyes, she looked gratefully at Xianxia. Xianxia chuckled as he clapped his hands and said, "All right. Based on your performance, you're not hopeless. Let us continue. Where were we just now?" "We were talking about why it gave us a reverse effect after we joined hands to suppress the violent aura," Xianxia said hurriedly and carefully. The whole great hall quieted down once again. The old man sat in the back row with his legs crossed. He felt strange and delighted at the same time as he watched these alchemists behave so humbly. "Ha! I never thought these arrogant, fastidious, but incompetent alchemists would look like this, sucking up to someone like some lowly people. Damn it! Where is your air of arrogance and dignity? Fuck!" He gave each of them a middle finger in his heart. But at the same time, he was totally aware that the reason these alchemists behaved like this was that they were thoroughly convinced by the boy's strength and knowledge. For example, martial grandmasters and martial emperors were all lofty figures, But if there was a martial supreme or a martial sovereign in front of them, they would also wait carefully to the side like some servants. It filled the old man's heart with curiosity. He wondered which power could cultivate such a young alchemist who could convince even third-tier alchemists. What tier is this boy at then? Damn it, he is only 15 years old, and he is also a 1-star's great martial master. Since when did such a genius appear in Firecrow Empire? He knew nothing about alchemy, so he could only guess. Meanwhile, every alchemist in front of him listened attentively to the lecture, not daring to think about anything else or even breathe too loud. After wiping away her tears, Xiao Feng carefully sat to the side, waiting for orders. No matter who this young man was, she knew that she would be treated completely differently from now on because of him. Alchemists were cold and indifferent, but they were proud of themselves, so they would not go back on their own words. Besides, a 100-fold pay rise was nothing to these wealthy people. Actually, it is very simple. I've told you just now that the reason the refinement failed is due to the overly high proportion of still copperstone. Because Master? Please call me Xiao Bai or Xiao Jin, but don't call me Master. I don't deserve it. Bai Qianjin hurriedly interrupted. Oh, because Xiao Bai had just advanced to the 3rd tier and his cultivation base is not stable yet. He used the 3rd tier material in an excess proportion to increase the success rate, believing that it could improve the probability of success. This is a suicidal move. How can you control a high proportion of 3rd tier materials when you can't even control a low proportion? As a result, during the refinement process, it greatly destroyed the material structure, causing a core instability. As soon as I walked through the door, I sensed that the damage will worsen if you continue, and with Xiao Bai's strength he could never stop it. Therefore, I asked this beautiful girl to move further away, lest she is hurt by the explosion. Xiao Feng's face turned red slightly, and she lowered her head in embarrassment. In her heart, she scolded herself for being such an ignorant girl and taking Yunxiao as a madman. All the alchemists were so shocked that they were rendered speechless. He can sense to such a fine degree simply through the energy waves coming from the artifact. Heaven, what tier is this master at? The theory is the same when you joined hands to suppress it with soul power later on. Yes, your joint soul power is strong enough to suppress the violent aura, but it also further destroyed the structure. Unless you could go beyond the level of the materials and completely suppress these structures, they would explode even more violently when they lost control. You should know that the still copperstone is not the only 3rd tier material in this little sword. At least 10 materials had been destroyed by your concerted efforts to suppress the violent aura, so an explosion was inevitable. Everyone had an enlightened look. Alchemists were a group of people who sought the Tao at the cost of their lives, because many of them were killed by explosions during the refinement process. A new theory learned and experience earned meant a higher chance of survival. Therefore, they were very grateful as they absorbed and digested the knowledge taught by Yunxiao. The old man in the back could not bear it anymore. Then, how did you suppress the violent aura? Don't tell me that your soul power is strong enough to completely suppress the power contained in these materials. Yunxiao glanced at the old man and explained triumphantly. The basic principle in flood control should be dredging and not blocking, and it is the same principle I applied here. While I dispersed the violent aura with various incantation gestures, I was constantly fixing the damaged structure in the materials. After I had completely resolved the risk of explosion, I took the opportunity to fix the shape of the sword. Damaged materials could be repaired? All alchemists gaped, as that was already beyond their knowledge. An alchemist carefully raised his doubts. Refinement is an irreversible process, so how can damaged materials be repaired? Of course, they can be repaired. Yunxiao glanced at him as if he were an idiot and said, resources on the heavenly martial continent are getting lesser and lesser. If every alchemist is as wasteful as you, throwing away everything that is damaged, we will soon run out of materials, especially 7th, 8th, and 9th tier materials, which are extremely rare. If a damaged mystic artifact can be repaired, damaged materials can be repaired as well. The key is you must have a very deep understanding of the material structure. In fact, refining is a process of decomposition and recombination, And once structures that are damaged during the refining process are repaired with reasonable incantation seals, they can be included in the normal refining steps again, and the effect will not be reduced. His words made everybody sink in thoughts. In theory, it seemed to work, but it would require a terrifyingly fine control in practice. And when they thought of the complicated incantation gestures he used just now, and how fast he had performed them, their faces turned pale. These alchemists, who were well known in Firecrow Empire and proud of themselves, found out for the first time that the process of refinement could be controlled with such subtlety. For them, it was not only a violation of common sense, but also a blow to their minds and a subversion in the theory they had learned. Master, I have a question that's been bothering me for years. Whenever I am refining a third-tier medicinal pill during the burning step, Master, every time when I'm using an array, I always feel, Master, when I'm extracting a raw or, I always... For a moment, everyone asked questions that troubled them out loud, fearing the Master could not hear them if their voices were not loud enough. Everyone's eyes gleamed with enthusiasm. If they missed this opportunity, they did not know when would they get the answers. Soon, the whole great hall was drowned in loud voices. All right, that's enough. Xianxia waved his hands and shouted, Quiet down, all of you. His roar immediately shut all mouths. But everyone's face was still red, the enthusiasm in their eyes not weakening at all. Moreover, the way they looked at him was filled with reverence. Xianxia snorted coldly. Who do you take me for? Someone who can answer all your questions for free? I'm a very busy person. His words immediately made everyone distressed and dejected. He's right. He's an alchemy master far better than us all, and we were already lucky enough to have him teach us something just now. We have no right to ask him to answer our questions. But I'm not so unkind. Write down your questions and give them to this beautiful girl. Xianxia pointed at Xiaofang. Each of you cannot submit more than 3 questions, and I'll only answer 50 questions in total. While smiling, he turned to Xiaofang, who was gaping, and said, Pretty girl, you will select and organize the 50 questions. You will decide whose questions are to be submitted to me, and just ignore those whom you don't like. I'll send someone to get the questions from you a few days later, and then I will answer them all at once. Xiaofang was completely struck dumb. That was tantamount to giving her the right to choose the questions completely, and if these alchemists wished their questions to be answered, they would have to try their best to curry favor with her. All eyes turned to Xiaofang at the same time, gleaming like those of hungry wolves and tigers. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the great hall became tense and silence fell, as if a great storm were about to come. They were so focused on her that no one noticed when Xianxia left. Bang! Suddenly, the door was kicked open. When the group of alchemists waiting outside saw Xianxia walked out leisurely, they knew it was safe inside, and they rushed through the door immediately. A puzzled look came over their faces when they saw everyone was fine and clustered around Xiaofang. They did not understand what was going on. Bitch! I asked you to find out what happened and report back to us, and yet you just sit here comfortably? Do you think you are a boss now? Fuck! Brother Shangguan flew into a rage when he saw Xiaofang sitting there, and he walked over and gave her a kick. At that moment, almost everyone's eyes grew wide as they stared at the leg in horror. Bang! The leg hit something, but it was Zhang Hua's back, who at some point had come between Brother Shangguan and Xiaofang. A trace of blood ran down the corner of his mouth. Master Zhang Yu? Xiaofang was overwhelmed with horror, and she felt her head go completely blank. She could not believe that a third-tier alchemist had just blocked an attack for her with his body. I'm all right. The kick is nothing. I can protect you even if there are 100 or 1,000 more kicks. Xiaofang, I only have 3 simple questions. You must help me submit them to Master. From now on, I will treat you as if you were my sister of the same blood. Zhang San said slowly in an affectionate tone. That woke everyone immediately, while the people who came in later froze on the spot, their heads seeming to have stopped functioning as they could not figure out what was going on. Brother Shangguan was petrified as well, with his leg held in mid-air and his eyes widened. I've just kicked Master Zhang in the back, and the atmosphere. He immediately felt that the people around were looking at him strangely. All of a sudden, someone hit him from the back, and in the next instant, countless punches rained down on him. Before he knew what was going on, he fainted with pain and was thrown to the ground. How do you want us to deal with this fellow, Sister Xiaofang? Do you want him flayed, dismembered, or his whole family killed? Just tell us what you want. Killing his whole family is too light a punishment. I say we should kill all his relatives as well. Sister Xiaofang, just nod at me and I will go kill all his relatives now. Sister Xiaofang, you're not married yet, are you? My cousin came in fourth in the last Superboy of Firecrow Empire. He's from a wealthy family and has not yet married. Get out of here. Can his family be wealthier than the 4 major families? My nephew is a collateral descendant of the Chung family. He is very young, and has already become a great martial master at the age of 64. With so many people crowded around her, Xiaofang felt she was about to pass out. For a moment, the great hall in the Alchemy Association was as noisy as a wet market. Yunxiao had long sneaked out of it, and the old man followed closely behind him. They went into an alley and found a random tea house, ordering 2 pots of tea. Yunxiao took a sip of the tea and tasted it carefully. This is a 2-year-old turquoise tea, middle-grade quality. I think the leaves were picked before the rain in March the year before last. The old man was taken aback. He took a sip of his tea and smacked his lips as he said dubiously, "Really? You can taste that?" Yunxiao gave him a smile instead of an answer. Drumming his fingers on the table, he said triumphantly, "Let me introduce myself. My name is Li Yunxiao, and you just have to address me young Master Yun. I will pay you 100,000 superior-grade primordial stones for your service of 1 year. Do you have any other requests?" The old man pulled a long face and said incredulously, "You're not really going to let me serve you for a year, are you? I'm a 7 stars martial grandmaster. Don't you have any respect for the strong and the old?" Yunxiao's eyes grew cold. "So, you do know you are a 7 stars martial grandmaster. You're not fucking going back on your own words, are you? No more salary for you. I'll just provide you meals and accommodation." "No, no, no." The old man waved hurriedly and said, "I want the salary, I was just asking." 100,000 superior-grade primordial stones were very attractive even to a martial grandmaster. "So, what do you want me to do during this 1 year? It's not murder and arson, is it? What family are you from, boy?" The old man asked a few questions in a row, as he was very interested in Yunxiao's identity. This boy's skill in alchemy is incredibly strong. If he continues to grow, he will certainly become a famous figure in the future. It will pay to be on good terms with him now. Yunxiao held up a finger and said coldly, "I repeat, call me young Master Yun. As for what family am I from, this is none of your business. You better introduce yourself to me now." The snub slightly displeased the old man. He narrowed his eyes and said, "My name is Duan Yu, and you just have to address me Sir Duan." "Oh, I'll call you Little Yu then," Yunxiao said indifferently. "Trying to act like a senior in front of me? You're not fit. You?" That gave Duan Yu a pause, but then he sighed dejectedly. He found that it was very difficult for him to gain an upper hand in front of this boy. Suddenly, he smiled enigmatically and said, "You are looking for poisonous blood of a demon beast above the 4th tier, aren't you?" Yunxiao had just taken another sip of tea. His eyes gleamed, but when he saw Duan Yu's triumphant look, he snorted and slowly put down the teacup, pretending to be indifferent. "It's just for fun." "Why? Do you have it?" "No, I don't," Duan Yu said firmly. But when he saw Yunxiao's fuming eyes, he quickly smiled and said, "But I know where you can find it." Yunxiao looked at him as if he were an idiot and said in disdain, "Do I need you to tell me? The land of demon, the Tiandang Mountains, the ancient wasteland, golden desert. Which of these places doesn't have the demon beast I want?" Duan Yu almost vomited blood. "Who dares to go to these places? Even Gu Feiyang died in the Tiandang Mountains. What I mean is a place we can go to, and yet the odds of finding one are high." "Oh!" Yunxiao's interest was aroused. Are there one or two poisonous fourth-tier demon beasts in a nearby mountain? Duan Yu smiled and said, not a demon beast, but something in the sea. A sea beast. Yun Xiao's eyes flashed, as if he had thought of something. Are you talking about the South Sea adjacent to the Sky Fragrance Empire? Exactly. It really saves time when talking to smart people. Somewhat excited, Duan Yu said. The South Sea is teeming with various sea beasts, and many of them are fourth tier and above. It is extremely easy to hunt a poisonous fourth-tier sea beast there. Yun Xiao thumped his teacup on the table and sneered. Do you take me for a fool? The sea is boundless, and sea beasts near the land are at most second tier. To find a fourth-tier sea beast, we need to venture at least 1,000 miles out, but we don't have a marine map. Even if we did, it will only help us in navigating around and not find a poisonous fourth-tier sea beast in the vast water. Not to mention the odds of running into some high-level creatures and get ourselves killed is extremely high. Duan Yu found it very difficult to deceive this boy. How could he know so much at such a young age? It's like he has been to the sea before. He knew he had to use another method. So, he took out an old beast's skin from his ring and spread it out flat in front of Yun Xiao while speaking. Have a look at this. Yun Xiao squinted at the skin. A few times thicker than a common demon beast's skin and still springy to the touch, it appeared to be the skin of some large sea beast. A marine map was delicately drawn on it, and there was a red triangular symbol at one of the corners, on top of which was written Kunwu. His pupils constricted abruptly, and his palm clenched unconsciously, grabbing the whole beast skin in his hand as he blurted out in shock. Kunwu Divine Tree? That startled Duan Yu, and he found the young man in front of him more and more mysterious. You know about the Kunwu Divine Tree as well? Yun Xiao realized that he had forgotten himself. If he learned the news at another time, he would not care or be so agitated. But Mengwu was in deep sleep right now, and she needed a soul-nourishing wood, which was the branch of a Kunwu divine tree that had absorbed a large amount of sea beast's life essence. I'm an alchemist, and there are few materials in the world I don't know about. Kunwu divine tree is just one of the precious plants. What's so strange that I know about it? He spread out the map and carefully studied it. Judging from this map, it should be about 1,000 miles out from Skyforgrant's coastline. It is not far, but since there is a Kunwu divine tree, there must be some high-level sea beasts guarding the area. The odds of finding a few poisonous ones are indeed high. After remaining silent for a moment, Yun Xiao returned the map to Duan Yu and gave him an indifferent look as he said, "Be frank with me? What do you want me to do? Tell me everything, including all the terms and benefits." Duan Yu was stunned. He did not expect Yun Xiao to guess his intention and be so direct with it. This boy is too scary. Did I really find the right person? I won't be conned by him instead, will I? What? Don't play stupid in front of me. Yun Xiao mocked. There must be something I can do for you. Otherwise, why would you be so kind as to share it with me if you could take the benefits all by yourself? If you don't want to be honest with me, I'll pretend I've never heard of this before. Gulp. Duan Yu swallowed hard as he smiled wryly and said, I wonder if there's a sly old fox hiding inside you. Yes, I need your help. In fact, my visit to the Alchemist Association was to find an alchemist. Initially, I picked by Qianjin, but now it seems that he is not strong enough. Yun Xiao sneered. So, you've picked me, because you think I'm young and my soul power is strong. So I'm easy to deceive and will work very hard for you? This? Duan Yu paused a moment, and then he shook his head and said vexedly, That's what I thought in the beginning, but I am really worried now that I've found the wrong person. Had I known you are so smart, I would have looked for other higher-tier alchemists. It is for fear of being conned that made me look for a younger and less experienced one. Don't worry, I'm only 15 years old and don't have much experience, said Yun Xiao with an honest and sincere look. The old man was speechless. If he had not known Yun Xiao slightly through their previous conversation, he would have believed that just by looking at his expression. But he would definitely not believe that statement now, and he began to explain the situation in detail. The Sky Fragrance Empire was adjacent to the South Sea and had an astonishing wealth of sea resources. Near the sea was a town called Qinghai. Small and with not big a population, it was one of the most bustling places in the south of the heavenly martial realm. Its floating population was hundreds to 1,000 times more than its permanent residents, all of which were businessmen pouring in from various places. In addition to normal merchants, these visitors included representatives of various powers and different members of the Commerce Alliance, who had all established their bases in Qinghai for its great wealth of sea resources. There were also numerous hunters coming from different places, hunting sea beasts all years round for a living and in exchange for all kinds of resources. Duan Yu was one such hunter, and a famous one at that. He was strong, and he always hunted alone. Moreover, he could kill sea beasts of a higher level than other ordinary hunters. That was how he had earned his reputation. The distribution of beasts in the sea was similar to what Yuanxiao described earlier. Within 1,000 miles from the coast, second-tier sea beasts were the strongest, which were equivalent to martial masters. But sea beasts had a unique advantage over humans in the water, so if a hunter wished to successfully kill a sea beast, he could only look for one that was one tier lower than himself. In other words, it required a great martial master to hunt a second-tier sea beast. Generally, with adequate preparation and by avoiding unfamiliar sea areas or going further out into the water, there would not be much danger. But because of this, sea beasts had almost run out in safe waters. As a result, large numbers of hunting groups risked going into deeper waters for higher yields. People had died because of that, but since the yield was so lucrative, many groups still took the risk. By chance, Duan Yu rescued a dying hunting group, and to thank him for saving their lives, the leader gave him the marine map as a token of gratitude. He did not take it to heart at first, but the more he looked at it, the more shocked he became, because he found that it was a marine map of a rainbow fog. The so-called rainbow fog was a very strange phenomenon in the sea. It was a rainbow-colored fog that suddenly appeared over the water, enveloping the sky and the sea. Within it, the visibility was extremely poor, and even divine sense could not travel too far. There were two types of rainbow fogs. The first one appeared at random, unpredictable locations, and the second type at fixed locations. The only thing they had in common was that once a rainbow fog appeared, the sea area was no longer the same place. The fog could produce a space tunnel effect, transporting those who entered it to another unknown sea area. A randomly generated rainbow fog would lead to a random sea area, while a fixed rainbow fog would lead to a fixed sea area. Therefore, a fixed rainbow fog had great exploration value and was regarded as a treasure vault. That made a marine map marked with a fixed rainbow fog like this an invaluable treasure, too precious to be priced. The four seas were vast, at least many times larger than the land. It was impossible for an average warrior to visit all of them, even if he spent his whole life trying to achieve that, while the imperial clans of the seas might not know all the details in the territories under their jurisdiction. So, owning a marine map of rainbow fog was like having an independent treasure land. Its value was simply astonishing. Of course, the risk that came with it was huge as well, because it would be a tragedy if it led to the habitat of some high-level sea beasts. When he had finished listening, Yuanxiao immediately knew what Duan Yu needed from him. Generally, where a rainbow fog was generated, there would be an accompanying substance called pink crystal dust. It had a pale pink hue, no odor, and was scattered within the fog. The dust was not poisonous, but a person would hallucinate if he inhaled it and eventually die in the sea. It could not be dispersed with primordial qi, and the only way to repel it was with strong soul power. Yuanxiao took a sip of tea and said leisurely, "You need me to disperse the pink crystal dust for you?" Upon hearing that, Duan Yu, who was sipping his tea to moisten his lips, spat out a mouthful and coughed violently. He kept slapping his own chest, and his eyes were filled with shock. "You?" He was utterly shocked. "Are you really just 15 years old? Even hunters who hunt all year round in the sea may not know about pink crystal dust, and only experts of a certain level know about its existence. You are just 15 years old, but you are already a third-tier alchemist and a one-star great martial master, and you even seem to know everything. Tell me which power has cultivated a monster like you. If I have sons and grandsons in the future, I will send them there to be cultivated." Yuanxiao smiled and said nothing. In fact, not only did he know about rainbow fog, but he had experienced one before. Legends had it that he slaughtered all the members of the sea clans within 8,000 miles and turned the whole sea blood red. But it was just rumors spread by humans to make themselves look better. The truth was that he was chased by the sea clans for 8,000 miles. However, he did kill countless of them along the way and turned a large part of the sea blood red. When he was forced into a dead end and he thought he was about to be killed, a rainbow fog appeared suddenly and transported him to another sea area, which saved his life. Yes, he was a mighty warrior, but even if all the top 10 experts of the heaven and earth power chart were there at the same time, they would also be killed by the tens of thousands of experts from the sea clans, among whom hundreds were as strong as martial sovereigns. After that, the common sovereign of the four seas, the Bo family, failed to find him, and under the pressure of the imperial sea clans, it brought tens of thousands of experts to besiege the Holy Realm. But even the Divine City dared not to fight them and had put up a board of truce. After besieging for months to no avail, only then did the sea clans leave. When Xianxia thought of what happened in those years, he had a feeling that a lifetime had passed since then. He smiled and said, "You are a hunter from Sky Fragrance Empire, but you came to Firecrow Empire's Alchemist Association to seek help, and you only look for young, inexperienced alchemists. Can be seen that you are a very cautious and suspicious man. If I work with you, I fear I will be swallowed whole by you." With a wry smile, Duanyu said, "The world is a dangerous place. You know how much this marine map is worth. I dare not to work with someone too clever. In fact, I already began to regret finding you. I should be the one afraid of being swallowed whole." Xianxia looked at the map and licked his lips. Its value did not concern him. What mattered to him was the Kunwu divine tree and poisonous blood of a sea beast. He must get both of them no matter what. "Sir Duan, you are too humble. You are a 7-stars martial grandmaster and I'm just a 1-star great martial master, so why should you be afraid of me? You can easily kill me with a finger. I should be the one who is afraid. Now tell me, how do we work together? And how will the prizes be split?" Duanyu considered a moment, and then he said in a deep voice, "Since you know about pink crystal dust, you should be aware of its power. The first thing I need to know is how sure are you that you can disperse this thing?" Xianxia smiled and a confident look came over his face as he drummed his index finger on the table and said, "If it is only for 2 people to pass, I'm 100% sure." 100%. Duanyu was taken aback. He would not believe it if that was said by someone else. But since Xianxia knew about pink crystal dust, he must have some understanding about it, and that meant his 100% thing was most likely accurate. "I can't believe your soul power is so strong." He nodded slightly and said, "That's good. We'll move together after passing through the rainbow fog, and whatever we find, we will split as 20 to 80. 20 to 80? You don't mean you take 80 and I take 20, do you? What else? I'm a 7-stars martial grandmaster and you're just a 1-star great martial master. So of course I take 80 and you take 20. Don't forget that you have to serve me for 1 year. Even if I refuse to work with you and go there alone, you still have to follow beside me and listen to my orders. You fine, 30 to 70. You can't ask for more than that. After all, this marine map is mine, and most likely I'll be the one who contributes the most when the time comes." Most likely? You distribute income based on something that may or may not happen. If you were in my position, would you accept it? If it weren't me, would it be you? I'll never agree to a 40 to 60 split. Then disperse the pink crystal dust yourself. Don't blame me for not reminding you. The slightest inhalation of that thing will completely paralyze your mind. Be prepared to be excreted by some sea beasts. Fine 40 to 60. Damn it. My heart hurts. Duanyu clutched his chest with a hand and put on a painful and reluctant look as he stared at Xianxia fiercely. While smiling, Xianxia poured himself another cup of tea and took a sip before speaking calmly. "I give you 2 options. The first one is a 50 to 50 split, and the second one is you give me the Kunwu divine tree and help me kill a 4th-tier poisonous sea beast, and the rest of the things belong to you. Choose one." "No way." Duanyu jumped and said angrily, "Don't go too far, boy. You'll only get a 50 to 50 split in your dreams. As for Kunwu divine tree, it is a precious plant, and its value is too significant to be measured. which I think is not below that of a 9th tier material. I can help you kill a sea beast though. How about I kill 2 for you, and everything else will be mine? Pa! Xiao put down his teacup and said coldly, "It seems like you are not sincere about working with me." "I'm not sincere?" Yu rolled his eyes and said vexedly, "I'll suffer a great loss if we split 50 to 50, but if I give you the Kunwu divine tree, once we arrive the sea area and find nothing but the divine tree, I'll have to jump into the sea and drown myself." Xiao smiled and said, "In business, one must be able to suffer losses. Sometimes, losses are blessings. Don't forget, you're in my service now, so giving you a 50 to 50 split is the best I can offer." Yu kept slapping himself on the head. "Stupid! Why did you bet with this boy? You've brought yourself into a trap." After being angry with himself for a while, he calmed down and said painfully, "Fine, we will split 50 to 50. But I have one condition." "Oh." Looking at his serious face, Xiao said, "What condition? Let's get the unpleasant out of the way first. I'll not agree to those conditions like, let you pick first." Yu felt his head reel. He really could not understand why a 15-year-old boy could be so smart. "I remember that when I was at his age, the only thing in my head was about picking up girls." He shook his head with a wry smile and said, "My condition is, if you have the strength and ability one day, I want you to refine a universal golden pill for me." Xiao's pupils constricted. His eyes gleamed as he studied Yu again, and only then did he nod lightly and speak, "All right, I promise you." "Really?" Yu was overjoyed, and he was so excited that he almost forgot himself. But then, he asked suspiciously, "Do you know what a universal golden pill is?" He was afraid that Xiao did not know about this medicinal pill and was just making a casual promise. After all, it was not a medicinal pill that he could get in touch with at his current level. Yu feared that when the time came, Xiao would go back on his own words with an excuse that he knew nothing about the medicinal pill. "Humph. It is nothing special but a medicinal pill that, when taken by a peak 9 stars martial emperor, can increase the chances of breaking through to the realm of martial supreme by a mere 30%, Xiao said disdainfully. Yu was relieved when he saw that Xiao was able to say out the medicinal pill's effect, but his nostrils flared at that disdainful tone. "Do you know how precious this medicinal pill is? Do you know all the great powers will fight to the death for it? Fuck, it is nothing special? A mere 30%? Do you have any idea what the tier of this pill is? Do you know how difficult it is to refine one? Do you know the meaning of increasing the chances of breaking through by 30%? Humph! Xiao gave him a contemptuous look, as if he were a poor man roaring with a bun in one hand. Then he snorted softly and closed his eyes as he said, "A universal golden pill is an 8th tier medicinal pill. Its 3 main ingredients are hollow hunting tooth, rock snakegrass, and bloodless phoenix, in addition to broken dragon sand, a 9th tier material, and 1,720 supplementary materials. It takes 12 different arrays and 360,000 incantation gestures to refine. The alchemist needs not only 8th tier soul power, which is the minimum requirement, but also 3 7th tier spirit rejuvenation pills, so that his soul power can be replenished when needed. Otherwise, even an 8th tier alchemy supreme cannot successfully refine one." The tea house was strangely quiet. Apart from the sound of porcelain as Xiao placed down the lip of the teapot, there was no other sound. Yu seemed completely petrified, as if he had turned into a mummy, sitting blankly there and unmoving. It was only after Xiao took a few sips of tea and changed the tea leaves that he slightly came back to his senses. "Ha! Ha!" Yu slapped his head with one hand as he pointed at Xiao with another and said, "Fake! This must be fake. You must be uttering nonsense. You are really funny, boy. You can't be knowing the recipe of an 8th tier medicinal pill and saying it out casually. Do you think you are one of the elders in the Sea of Soul Formation?" "Ha ha!" Although he did not sound convinced, his stiff expression and shocked look showed that he had fully believed it in his heart. Xiao arched his eyebrows slightly and chuckled in his heart, surprised by the fact that the old man had accurately guessed his identity a few times. Under his appearance of a 15-year-old boy was indeed the soul of a martial sovereign. and he was indeed an honorable elder of the Sea of Soul formation in his previous life. He smiled as he arranged the tea set orderly and said, "Let's go now. I have something very important to do, so I can't waste too much time." "Oh? What is it?" Duan Yu was curious about what important matter this young man had, who always looked so calm as if nothing in the world could concern him. "I'll tell you when we come back. When the time comes, I'll need your help, Sir Duan." After they left the tea house, Xianxia took out an item. Duan Yu's eyes lit up when he saw it, and he said enviously, "A Tiger King chariot? It is an excellent 5th-tier artifact. But, do you think it is appropriate to take it out here? Recently the Xingyang family in the city was wiped out by some mysterious experts, and now the whole city is at the highest alert. If you take out a Tiger King, I fear you will be targeted by at least 100 divine senses instantly." Xianxia chuckled and said indifferently, "That's exactly the effect I want." Under Duan Yu's shocked glance, he threw out the Tiger King, which grew rapidly in the air and soon cast a shadow over the street. "You're really not afraid of anything." Duan Yu watched helplessly as Xianxia jumped up the chariot, and he had no choice but to follow. While laughing, Xianxia slapped at the chariot's control array, and the vehicle immediately turned into an amber-colored stream of light, zooming over Xiangyang in the direction of Sky Fragrance Empire. "It's not that I'm not afraid, but this is exactly the effect I want." At the moment the chariot appeared and left, countless divine senses poured over crazily, but they were all repelled by an even stronger divine sense that shocked and terrified all the scouts, and dozens of figures appeared over the city in the next instant, each rushing toward different directions. In a secret mansion at an unknown place that belonged to the Temple of Revered Elders, Zhu Jin, who was sitting cross-legged in meditation, suddenly woke up. His face fell, and he cried out in surprise, "It's him!" In the next moment, he appeared directly in the sky hundreds of meters from the ground, shouting angrily as he watched the amber-colored stream of light disappear into the horizon. He did not know whether he should chase it or not. After staring blankly at it for a while, he turned sulkily and left. Soon, curses could be heard coming out of the Temple of Revered Elders. No other people dared to make a sound, and the curses quieted down after a few minutes.